Are you searching for a deeper understanding of your faith?
Inspiring Philosophy is your go-to resource for exploring the rich tapestry of Christian thought.
From biblical archaeology to philosophy of mind, we dive into the topics that matter.
Our content bridges faith and understanding, offering insights into God's existence and the reliability of the New Testament.
Join a community where faith meets reason and discover the answers you've been seeking.
Inspiring Philosophy, where faith meets understanding.
I'm sorry, Master, but I must go all out. Just this once. I don't like you, Muhammad. Dawa boys, you've left me no choice. Bible's been corrupted, that should go the line. But you claim the same book, prophesize your sign, twisting every scripture, faking all the quotes, hiding all the facts, trying to keep your boat afloat. Without lies, Islam dies. Perfect preservation, yeah, that myth got wrecked. Worldly Quran don't even match the text. Used to flex science, now you backing away, cause camel embryo facts don't hit the same today. Got the Islamic dilemma, you can't solve that. Every answer you give makes the problem snap back. Say the Bible's corrupt, but your own book cries. Bibles are Allah's words, they can't be revised. If Allah's words can't change, then your claims are fraud. You just argued yourself against the word of your God. Injil's secret book, that's your mystery prize, but the Quran said Christians should judge by it. Lies, then your crew pull muter like it's just a game. Ruined the life and trashed a man's name. All that dawah talk, but when truth appears, you vanish from the chat like it hurt your ears. Without lies, Islam dies. Can't hide truth, can't spin those lies. Without lies, Islam dies. Dawah cries when the facts arise. Without lies, Islam dies. Can't hide truth, can't spin those lies. Without lies, Islam dies. Dawah cries when the facts arise. We follow Jesus better, sure in your dream, while cutting out his claims like you're cropping a meme. Crown off his head, toss his cross in the bin. The smile for the camera like you're still his kin. Jesus was a Muslim, cute little twist. Redefine the word so the facts don't exist. If labels could change what the records prove, if Pharaoh was a Yahweh fan and Judas stayed true, Muhammad in the Song of Solomon, boy, you made your prophet a fruit. Snuggled up with Solomon and came the man of Ozu. Without lies, Islam dies. Can't hide truth, can't spin those lies. Without lies, Islam dies. Dawah cries when the facts arise. You preach perfect text, but the proof ain't there. Half's wash, even your readers don't care. Call the Bible corrupt, but still quote it loud. Trying to find Muhammad just to please your crowd. Song of Solomon, yeah, that's a flesh effect. You just wrote your prophet in the Solomon's bed. Then the man of Al-Zu came riding through all night long, and you say that's true. Jesus was a Muslim, the word plays dead. By that logic, Pharaoh bowed his head. You twist, you spin, but you can't disguise that every dawah claim is built on lies. Without lies, without lies, without lies, without
What's up, everybody? How you doing? I still have the New Year's outfit on. What can I say? Couldn't resist to have it back on. But how's everybody doing? Welcome back to the channel. I'm at my parents' house right now because it's New Year's, and I had to bring the fur coat back. So, so I'll take this off now. All right, it's really hot. It's really warm to wear for several hours, and these are heavy. I don't know why I still have these on. They're ridiculous. This is not even real. Just like threw it together like last minute. But how you doing? How you doing, Thaddeus?
I am doing well. Year's off to a great start. Islam is crumbling. Islam is on the decline. Maybe not technically in numbers, but certainly culturally, intellectually. The Dawah boys are on the run. and we're ready. We're ready.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Don't you know that Sheikh Uthman just challenged everyone to a debate, and all the Christian apologists just ran? We were all scared, apparently. No one could show up and debate him, even though we tried. But no one. He said so. So what are you talking about? What are you talking about?
Yeah, and I was on this earlier, getting the link a few hours ago, and someone was in here saying that, why do you need 6 months? Michael, why do you need 6 months to prepare for a debate with Orthodox Muslim or whichever guy it was that made that claim? So, yeah, why do you need 6 months to prepare?
Well, I don't. He's a liar. I said, I've always told people, hey, I prioritize in-person debates. I'm going to prioritize those. If you're not going to do an in-person debate, I'm going to put it off. So I told him to come to DebateCon in November. By the way, he was also invited to the prior DebateCon, the one back in February of 2025, to debate Apostate Prophet. He said he wasn't available for that one. So I was like, all right, fine. Well, he'll be available for the next one. So I was like, well, just do that one. He said he wasn't available. So then I was like, okay, well, when's the next in-person event? Marlon of the Gospel Truth is putting on a conference in February. Just have him do it there. Orthodox Muslim wasn't available for that one either. Getting a little suspicious now. But so I just said, fine. I just told Marlon, just schedule it for around that time, because I have a bunch of other in-person debates I'm doing. I have other events I'm doing. I'm going to prioritize that. So just do it around that. So, and then in his weird brain, he interpreted it. Oh, you see, he needs 6 months to prepare to debate me. Like, what is wrong with you? You know, people do other things other than think about you all day. Like, what? So like, whatever, man. It just shows you how they take facts and then they spin them into lies all the time. That's what they do. Yeah. So we're doing a live call-in show. If there are any Muslims watching, come in. And what we're doing today, folks, is pretty simple. If you're a Muslim, come on in and you give us your evidence for Islam. What, you have scientific miracles in the Quran? Do you think Muhammad predicted the future? Do you think the Quran has been perfectly preserved for 1,400 years? What is your evidence for Islam? Come in. Let's talk about it. And by the way, I just want to point this out. Thaddeus, if a Muslim was, if we went around and say Muslims are running from us, I mean, wouldn't we want to chase after them?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's pretty clear. So Sheikh Uthman and his Dawa bros said, we're running from them. This is the perfect opportunity for them to corner us. I mean, like, if we're on the run, I mean, the tactical strategy then is to chase down the enemy. So where are they? We're right here. I don't get it. We're running from them. Why aren't they coming right now to corner us? It's a perfect opportunity. But we know they're not going to show up, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, strangely, Uthman, this guy who is seen as a great debater of Islam, has never had a formal debate, as near as I can tell. He's never once formally debated anyone, and yet somehow he's the champion of Dawa. And he used to, of course, do his little public booth where he would get non-knowledgeable Christians and he would edit the clips to make them as embarrassing as possible, and built this reputation. But then God Logic started showing up, and then Uthman ran away. He stopped doing it. This is no longer worth my while because I keep getting challenged by God Logic over and over again. So very interesting stuff.
Very, very interesting stuff. It's odd he doesn't want to debate. I mean, let's go for the order of events with Uthman. He said, all you Islamophobes, all come debate me in person. We said, okay, yeah, sure. Yeah. In fact, you don't even have to pay for our travel. We'll pay it. I'm going to pay it. Yeah, absolutely. So we said yes, and then we sent them potential dates. Then we heard, oh, no, I'm just doing a live call-in show on December 30th. Come then. And we're like, okay, that's ridiculous. Obviously, you want a show where you get to mute people, kick them if you want. But Than and I had talked about it, and we're like, yeah, let's just do it anyway. But then Uthman announces, no, it's only if Sam Shamoon and God Logic, they have to come together. That's what's happening. You're like, okay, sure. We're like, I guess we'll just stream the same time you're doing it. And then the moment we're live waiting for them. And then, we're live waiting for them. We're live on my channel. And then he goes live and goes, why are none of these guys coming to debate me? what? And I'm like, what are you talking about? You said we couldn't come. Like, so then what do we do during the live? Even though we're live, I tell Fan, all right, I'm going to manage the stream. You try to get in. He tries to get in twice, puts his window up, wouldn't let him in.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then what does Sheikh Uthman do the day after? He posts a video on Instagram saying, see how they're all running from me? If you watch that entire sequence of events and you just listen to what I showed you here, and you still think we're the ones running and Uthman is the good guy, you're delusional, man. I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you at this point. You're delusional. So, yeah. Pretty messed up. Let's get to these quick super chats here, and then we'll bring in our first guest here. So, Dawa Troll says, inspiring pimp, pimping the Dawa at his parents. It's kind of gross. Are you going to react to Dean's Aisha response? He somehow affirms both horns in the first 5 minutes. Appreciate the work you do. Yeah, I'm waiting for a Giant DOC. I want them to help respond to that one. We're going to, and the other video of his as well, which is somehow even worse. But yeah, we will get, but don't worry. What is it, Thaddeus, with all the Dawa videos? They always have to open up with this like 2-minute monologue about how dumb you are before they can even respond to you. And then they go on to say some of the dumbest stuff you ever heard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, it happens every time. I don't get it. Dawa takes 3 years to prepare to expect a debate unexpectedly when they are ready. Oh, still need to be in their safe space to prevent to be zooted. Yes, it happens every time. Yep, I don't know. Again, then it's not just Sheikh Uthman who's running from us. It's also Muhammad Ajab. Muhammad Ajab, Thaddeus, he said he will debate a Christian on the Islamic dilemma if he has over 500,000 subs. Everyone look below. How many subs do we have? Is he debating me? No, he's not, because he can't. John Fontaine is running. He showed up on Avery's stream a couple months ago and said he wanted to debate David Wood, myself, and Chris of Speaker's Corner. So far, he's debated David Wood. I think he debated Chris at some point in Speaker's Corner, I believe. But he hasn't debated me yet. Why is that? That's weird. I don't get it. So weird stuff's happening. Weird stuff. Let's do a couple more here, and then we'll jump in. The Dawa gang is claiming New Year's is pagan. Well, how? What pagan rituals are we doing? Like, I don't get it, man. Apostate of Allah is in the chat. Nice to see you. Everyone subscribe to Apostate of Allah. I have an idea. Since Sheikh Ketchup doesn't know who I am, why don't I debate him on Modern Day Debate? He doesn't want to debate you because he doesn't want that smoke. That's true, Apostate of Allah, but he also doesn't want that smoke either. Let's be honest. Happy New Year, everyone. Pray everyone continues to grow in 2026. My mission for this year is to talk more boldly about Christ in public, work, etc. I'm not good with public speaking, so pray for me to grow in wisdom. We definitely will. And remember, the best way to grow in that is to practice it. You need to just dive in and get your feet wet, buddy. I think you can do it. You're going to suck at first, but the more you do it, the better you will get. Amen. Dawa Troll says New Year's is pagan only because they are afraid. Yes, this is true. All right, let's bring up our first caller. This is Dean Despond. Dean, do you hear us?
Yeah, good evening. Can you hear me?
Good. Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah. How you doing?
So, I just have something short to say.
Well, first, are you
I've been looking into this. No.
No, what are you?
The point of the Despond.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I'm a Christian.
Okay, well, the show right now
so it's
is
a mockery of
Muslims. I see. It's a mockery thing. Yeah, I get what you're doing. But the show right now is only for Muslims.
Yeah.
So
I just want you to do it. I just want to say something short. Something short. Oh, and I'll go. So I want you to do a response to Dean's response with on the conscious editing using Surah chapter 11 from verse 78 to 80. Just kind of do a short video on it.
Surah what? Surah what? 11? You said 47?
Surah 11. Surah 11, 78 to 80.
78 to 80. Okay.
So,
So
yeah,
let me just put that up for
yeah.
everybody.
Once you read it, you
And his people who were used to shameful deeds came to him rushing. He pleaded, "Oh, my people, here are my daughters for marriage. They are pure for you. So fear Allah, do not humiliate me by respecting my guests. Is there not even a single right-minded man among you?" They argued, "You certainly know that we have
yeah.
no need of your daughters. You already know what we desire." He responded, "If only I had the strength to resist you or could rely on strong supporter." So what is this in relation? You said this is in relation to conscious editing or something?
It's, yeah. If you read the previous verse before that, you would realize that Lot already realized these people were angels and they were there to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. This is different from the Bible's narrative. So, if the Quran is consciously editing the Bible, then how does Lot know that these people are angels, yet he still offers his daughters to be raped, and at the same time he's still asking for help from Allah, knowing that these people are angels that are here to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah? The narrative makes absolutely no sense in the Quran's narrative. So which is why he doesn't use it for his conscious editing arguments. If you read the previous verses and go through it properly.
I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna look more into this. I appreciate that. That's an interesting point. But I'm gonna let you go right now, and we're gonna let a Muslim in here. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, if the Quran was consciously editing the Bible, you'd think that it would tell us, right? You'd think it would have something like, "You have heard it said, but I say to you."
Yeah, good point. But I mean, here's even worse, Thaddeus. If the Quran is consciously editing the Bible, that makes the entire Quran circular, because the Quran says the reason we as Christians should believe in the Quran is because it's confirming our scriptures.
Mm-hmm.
So if the Quran is consciously editing the Bible, it's selecting parts of the Bible that agree with it, and those are the true parts, then we are to take those true parts of the Bible and use them to believe in the Quran. And then once we believe in the Quran, we also believe the Quran is consciously editing the Bible, and it selects the parts that are true. Then we use those parts that are true to believe in the Quran. And then once we believe in the Quran, see, it's just circular nonsense at that point. So it's ridiculous. All right, so let's bring up our next guest here. Name is in Arabic, so I don't know what should we call you, sir?
How are you? Amr.
What, Ahmed?
Amr.
Ahmed?
Ahmed?
Yeah, Amr.
Okay.
Amr.
So you're a Muslim?
Yeah, I'm a Muslim.
All right, great. Thanks for joining us. Can you give us, tell us why you are a Muslim? Like, what is the reason to believe in Islam?
Yeah, it's like a total case for Islam, but the Quran actually contains a lot of amount of biblical stuff, prophets, a lot, like Imran, for example, Moses, Jesus, a lot, and we doesn't have any archaeological evidence in Hijaz for Christian communities, Jewish communities. We don't have any of that. We have in edges of Arabia. We don't have in Hijaz at all any archaeological evidence. And how is that possible? You have a lot of this knowledge of biblical figures, and how you can explain that?
So let me steelman your argument here. I'm going to try to steelman, and you can say yes, and then I want Thaddeus to respond to this.
Okay.
So let me just so what you're saying is in the Hijaz. Also, sorry, I need to mute you because I'm getting a playback. I can hear my voice coming through your mic. So unless you can fix that, I'm gonna just mute you while I explain this. Okay, there we go. That sounds better. I think so. Nope, I still hear myself. So let me just do this, and then I'm gonna unmute you in a second, just so we don't hear the playback. It's nothing to do with you. I rarely mute on this channel unless someone is like belligerent. So to steelman your argument, you're saying in the Hijaz region, area around Mecca and Medina, we don't have any evidence of Christian communities in that region. We don't have any evidence of, but there's a lot of biblical stories in the Quran about prophets and stuff. So how could Muhammad have known all this this stuff about biblical prophets, biblical stories, when he would not have been able to hear that from Christians around. Is that your argument that Islam is true? I'm going to unmute you now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This is my argument.
Great.
Actually, if you read Stephen Shoemaker, Gabriel Reynolds, and Timothy T.S. Gallup-Doy, it's everywhere. It's almost everywhere.
Thaddeus, what do you think of that?
Yeah. So Amr, what was Muhammad's profession before he received his call from Allah according to Islamic tradition?
He was a merchant, of course. We have also contemporary Christians writings actually tells us he is a merchant, but there is nothing in Sirah, Maghazi literature, the biography of Muhammad, have nothing to do with where he's going, and it's everywhere. It's not just he's talk about tritheism and John Filipinos and the debate about the afterlife.
Go ahead, Thaddeus.
The reason I asked is because your argument depends on Muhammad being incapable of hearing these stories. But if he's a traveling merchant going to other places, and I could probably also dispute whether there's Christians in the region, but if your argument depends on him not being able to hear these stories, and yet he's a traveling merchant going to all kinds of places, and the Islamic tradition indeed says that he is interacting with Christians, for example, while on these merchant journeys, how would that be consistent with your argument, right? If he does have the ability to hear these stories earlier in life, I'm not saying while he's saying he's a prophet, but if he hears them earlier in life, why can't he repeat them later on?
Because the content is huge. It's not like much, and I don't believe the stories about Waraq ibn Nawfal and the monk of Bahira actually to be historical. We have like Muammar bin Rashid biography. It's something like Ibn Ishaq biography. Doesn't have all of this. All
I got
this,
a question. Do you believe in the Sunnah? Like, do you hold to the Hadith?
I like Javad Hashmi type of don't all.
Okay, so you're not a traditional like Sunni Muslim. You're a little more. If you're in agreement with Javad Hashmi, you're more of a modernist Muslim then, correct?
About ethical stuff, no, but
right. I'm not saying you exactly agree with him, but you don't hold to the traditional Salafi or traditional Sunni approach where you accept all the Sunnah.
I am an Ash'ari Muslim.
Okay, well then you have to believe in the Sunnah, though. I believe,
but
right?
There's a lot of stuff here. There's a lot.
Okay. Well, I mean, like, what about like places in the Quran where Muhammad is interacting with Christians? I mean, he's like Surah 568. Say to the people of the book, you have nothing to stand on unless you observe the Torah, the gospel, and what has been revealed to you from your Lord. If Muhammad was not meant to talk to Christians, who is Allah talking to when he's speaking through Muhammad in that instance? Is this something for the future? Is this something, because it seems to imply that he was interacting with Christians right then and there.
We have Christians in the edges of Arabia, like in Najran, and we have but it's not that's huge. It's like letters to them, just that.
Go ahead, Thaddeus.
All right, so you're saying that Muhammad, there may have been like some Christians on the fringe of the territories that Muhammad was interacting with, but basically your argument isn't that he couldn't have heard anything about Christianity, but that there's too much, right? There's too much biblical
not anything
knowledge.
Of course, the content is a lot.
Yeah. There's too much biblical knowledge in the Quran, I think, is basically your argument. You seem to be well versed, and you seem to know the academics surrounding this. So I'm going to ask you: in the Quran, does the Quran have an explanation for where an accusation of where these stories are coming from that isn't from God? Right? What are the opponents saying about where the stories are coming from?
He's a wizard.
Yeah, that is one of the accusations, not the one I had.
Allah, mentally disabled like this.
Does the Quran make accusations of Muhammad, say, repeating the stories of the ancients or having informants on the things that he's preaching?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And what is the Quran's defense against that?
They don't actually. It's really interesting. It's not. They accuse him of knowing and studying this stuff from a preacher, from a Christian preacher, and the Quran actually respond to them. He is non-Arabic speaker. He doesn't speak Arabic. Okay, this is. How you to make this?
Yeah, that is correct.
Can he speak Aramaic and Syriac? He can.
Mm-hmm. But he can interact with people, though. I mean, he's an illiterate prophet, but he can still hear stories about.
He can, but the content is huge.
Groups. Yeah, but I mean, like, well, I mean, just to step back for a second.
I live there.
Okay, but where do you live? You can just don't tell me the specific place. Okay, Egypt. Okay,
Egypt.
I have spent a good amount of time now. When I was doing New Testament, my series on the reliability of the New Testament, the reliability of the Gospels, I spent a ton of time reading books on oral cultures that thrive around oral traditions, stories that thrive around memory. And if you're like in a literate culture, you're going to be able to retain stories and repeat them, not verbatim word for word, but in different variations. And here's the thing, the way the Quran stories show up kind of matches that. Like there's all these different, the stories are so different. They contradict the Bible in so many places. It sounds like Muhammad heard a story from someone who heard it from someone who heard it from someone, and it got corrupted through the transmission there. And then it ends up in his oral recitations of what he's calling the Quran. And that's what we got there. I mean, like, I mean, even Stephen Shoemaker talks about in his book Creating the Quran that there were biblical stories being spread around throughout Arabia, down to Yemen. I mean, there was a Jewish kingdom down there at southern Arabia for a while. So obviously some stories were getting down there.
Actually, Stephen Shoemaker talks about it, but he actually ending his he ended my English not that much.
That's
but
fine.
He makes Prophet Muhammad dying almost like 60 years after the Sirah Maghazi literature.
No, I think you mean before. I think you mean before. His book. I read his book. He argues the Quran was written
to Palestine.
Yeah, he thinks the Quran was not written down, compiled until like some 30 to 40, maybe in 50 years after Muhammad died.
Joshua Little actually eliminates this hypothesis at all with his recent paper. But okay, Stephen Shoemaker make it Ahmad bin Abdul Malik, of course. Okay, this is how he explained it. You will subscribe to it?
No, I don't actually. I think he makes some interesting points. Like I read his book, I thought he made some really good points. I honestly am kind of agnostic on all that stuff right now in terms of how the Quran came to be. I don't think it's the standard Islamic narrative. I don't think it was all recited by Muhammad as it is. We have it now. Then it was written down under Abu Bakr. I think there's probably a little more complex because you throw John of Damascus in there, and he's talking. He doesn't even talk about the Quran. He talks about different books like that we now know are surahs in the Quran, and he would have been in a good position to understand this. So it's a lot more fuzzy than what we see in the standard Islamic narrative, and it's a lot more fuzzy than Stephen Shoemaker makes it to be. So I think it's probably one of those things that's going to be kind of hard to really ever decipher how we got the Quran. But I do think it preserves a lot of very early things that go back to this historical guy that called Muhammad, who claimed to be a prophet.
Okay. So, okay. How you can explain the expanding of Islam? It's huge. You have just some Arabs. Okay, different evidence. It's a case. You have this tiny village in Arabia, and just like 100 years after, they go to the Andalus. They go to Spain.
Oh,
How you
yeah.
can explain this?
I love
You have
this.
really empires like Roman, Persia, Ascom, Himmerite.
Yeah.
How?
Let me. Oh, I can eat. Let me just say real quick, and then Thaddeus, if you want to add anything on to what I'm going to say, and then we'll. So your argument is that the reason Islam is one of the reasons Islam is true is because it expanded so rapidly and created this vast empire. Have you ever heard of the Mongols? They were another nomadic type group that also created a vast empire really quickly. Because one of the things Robert Hoyland talks about in his book In God's Path is that a lot of the settled areas underestimated how quickly nomadic groups, once they started to become a more cohesive unity, could fight and travel at fast rates and conquer vast territories of land. And also, right before the Muslim conquest, we saw a massive war between the Persians and the Romans, the Byzantines really. And the Byzantines and the Persians destroyed each other. They absolutely destroyed each other. They lost so many troops. They were both severely weakened. They were ripe for conquering because of that. So combining those two things, you have a recipe for a takeover, just like the Mongols. Very similar, just like the Huns. This has happened in history before, where nomadic people come out of a uncivilized, so to speak, region without walled cities, and they can conquer vast amounts of territories because they can move fast because they're used to moving. Thaddeus, anything you want to say to add to that?
No, I think you gave it very well there.
All right. So that doesn't, you don't need supernatural explanation. And by the way, if we're going on that, then I could make an argument for Christianity, because guess where it stopped? The gates of Western Europe. The 732, Tours of France, Charles Martel pushed back the Muslim invaders, and then the Reconquista began, and we pushed you guys out of Europe. So maybe that's evidence that Christianity is true, because nothing could stop this massive invasion until Western Christianity stopped it.
The Mongols, this empire, it's collapsed quickly. It doesn't survive a lot.
You don't say. How many civil wars did the early Muslims fight early on? Quite a couple.
What's have to do with this?
Well, I mean, you said there was corruption, right?
No. What he said is that the I think his point was that the Mongols didn't.
Quickly.
They didn't establish a long-term empire, whereas the Muslims did.
I see.
I see.
Well,
we have like
really.
1,400.
Well, I mean, the Mongols splintered into different hordes. So did the Islamic world after the Abbasid Caliphate took over. I mean, you have the House of Cordoba, and then you have splintering happening there. And so, I mean, you did have a lot of splintering happening from the Islamic world.
Yeah, institutionally it's happened, but the Muslim world is still a huge. You have countries there and there, but
so
it hasn't satisfied me.
Okay, so I'm gonna help you out here a little bit. Okay, I actually think although this isn't an argument that Muslims usually make, I think this is actually one of the best arguments you can make for Islam. But I think it's going to just be a piece of evidence rather than an argument that is definitive, because you can explain it by human means. Now,
compared
if
with
Allah,
Christianity,
right,
the resurrection.
Hold on a second. What I'm saying here is, if Allah was actually blessing the Arab people, it is consistent with that blessing that they would be able to conquer vast swaths of land after he told them that they would be able to. So I think it does actually count as a piece of evidence. And this is one of the few things that Muslims could bring that I would actually consider evidence. The problem is that it's not sufficient in and of itself to prove Islam is true. It'd just be one piece of the pie. And you have to weigh that against all the evidence against Islam.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You have to weigh it against all the reasons to believe this is not the case. And keeping in mind that it is possible for human beings to raise armies and conquer large swaths of land. And by your logic, all right, you don't want to refer to Mongolia, right? But by your logic, the Roman Empire that started in this tiny little city-state, not even a city-state at that time, of Rome, and then ended up conquering all basically the majority of Europe, portions of the Middle East, portions of North Africa, and sustained that for an incredibly long period of time. Arguably the greatest empire in terms of, breadth and length the world has ever known.
Mm-hmm.
And that has nothing to do, I'm not saying that's an argument for Christianity. Obviously, that has nothing to do with Christianity. I'm just saying that it is possible for human beings to do this, right? It is possible for human beings to sustain an empire over a long period of time.
Yeah, we got to go with
Rome
the
have a
simplest
long-
explanation.
Yeah, of course, but Rome have a really huge history of empires.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it didn't
Not like the
start-
Arabs.
It
The
started,
Arabs
it started
doesn't.
tiny. What do you mean? There was no empire in, say, Italy, what we'd now call Italy, before the Roman Empire.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Alexander the Great has been from Italy or Greece.
Well, Greece is not Italy. Those are two different places.
Yeah, two different places, man. But I mean, like, just the full argument in general. If this was God ordained to create this vast Islamic empire, why did it stop at the borders of Europe and then start reversing? Why has it not lasted? Why did it splinter and fracture? Why does the caliphate not even exist anymore? Was Allah not powerful enough to protect his caliphate? This is that you got to take this argument to its
100
logical
years.
extreme. Yeah, it's gone though for 100 years. That's a pretty big time, and there's no sign of it coming back anytime soon. I mean, like the last one to try was ISIS, and everyone the Islamic world turned on them, and good on them for doing that.
You are very rude, actually.
I'm rude.
Yeah.
Why?
Why?
Don't get. We don't need politics.
This has nothing to do with ISIS. I think you say you're rude because you brought up ISIS, but that wasn't a criticism of Islam.
No,
that
I
was
complimented
just a statement, right? Yeah, you complimented the Muslim.
I said that it was great that the Muslim world destroyed ISIS along with its allies like America and Europe. Look, that's me complimenting Muslims. Me saying, great, you guys realize this was bad and you went after it.
Do you think the resurrection actually have more probability to be?
Yes,
I'd be happy to answer that, but I want to actually go back for a
You
second.
don't have
because
eyewitnesses.
Hold on.
Yes, we do.
Hold on. If IP allows, we'll talk about the resurrection. But I actually want to. I want to hold you accountable to your first argument. So you raised two arguments that Islam is true. One is that it would be difficult or impossible for a human being in 7th century Arabia to have the level of biblical knowledge found in the Quran. And then the second was what you were just talking about with the conquest. But I showed you that the Quran itself, Surah 16 verses like 102, 103, 104, suggests that what people at the time were saying is, yeah, he is getting this knowledge from a human being. It would only take one person, right? It only takes one person, even if there isn't biblical knowledge where Muhammad is, and I dispute that from a historical perspective, but even if there isn't, it only takes one person coming from, Syria or wherever the Christians are down there and informing Muhammad of the case. And you said you denied the Islamic sources. We could just that some of them are historical, and I would agree, some of them aren't. And we could discuss that, but that's not really the point. The point is whether it's possible or not, right? Because your argument relies on it being impossible for Muhammad to have heard enough information for what's contained in the Quran. And you kept saying it's a lot. But I mean, frankly, I'm not impressed. The Quran actually doesn't seem to have very much knowledge about the biblical stories. There's only one complete story in the entire Quran, and that's the story of Joseph. All the other figures are just vague allusions to what happened, just general ideas, which general ideas that even often contradict the Bible. So it doesn't seem to be very surprising or miraculous to me. But to your credit, this is actually the argument that Muhammad himself was making. It's an argument that Muslims run away from today. But this is the argument that Muhammad himself was making is, see how I'm exactly repeating the stories that the Jews and Christians already know? And because I don't have access to this knowledge and I'm repeating these stories, that proves that I'm from God. The problem is the stories aren't actually repetition, right? They aren't actually telling the same story. They're telling similar ideas, right? They're conveying some of the general ideas, but missing tons of the details and getting lots of things differently without ever saying that it's changing anything or correcting anything or anything like that. So I do not find that argument to be very good at all.
Actually, the accusation of pagan Arabs, they don't refer to a community. They refer to one person.
Right. That's what I said.
Yeah, this means there is no community. You have just someone there and someone there, and the accusation is just to the one person.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay,
Yeah, that's literally
the
what I
argument
said.
is not from
Logically,
just
it only takes one.
little stuff, little content. This huge content. How there is
I
we need a
disagree
community
that
of
it's a huge amount
Christians.
of content.
I have
we
a
have-
question for you. So if Muhammad was getting these stories from God and not from people around him, shouldn't they line up with what the actual stories are? Because that's what Allah keeps saying in the Quran, that he's giving Muhammad
Yeah, of
all
course.
these stories about the prophets, and he's confirming our scriptures. So Allah is saying that if you go check the scriptures before Muhammad, Surah 1094, Surah 285, Surah 291, 24, 241, Allah is saying if you go check the prior scriptures, you're going to see that they're saying the exact same thing as Muhammad is saying. So by that logic, shouldn't they be in total agreement?
No, not in total agreement. This all verses is about Muhammad, the pagan Arabs treat Muhammad really badly, really badly. He just God tell Muhammad to go to this scriptures, the people of scripture, to know about the stories of Noah and Abraham, their communities, how they treat him, to understand that people will treat him badly. Just that.
Okay, but
not
what does Allah say?
every-
What does Allah say though about all this?
Give me the verse.
1094. So like Allah says, if you are in doubt about that which we have revealed to you, then ask those who read the scripture before you. So he says, listen, if you're doubting these stories you got, go check with the people who've already read the scriptures, because they're going to be in alignment.
You put a lot of wordings. It doesn't there. No.
What are you talking about? It's right there.
It doesn't talk about the stories. If you have doubt, ask the people of the scripture. It doesn't say ask them for what. It doesn't say that.
To verify what the revelations Muhammad has received.
Okay. I will think about it.
All right. Well, we appreciate it. We've been talking for a little while. We're gonna give someone else a chance.
Yeah.
Nice talking with you, man. Thanks for calling in from Egypt. So I'm going to bring in AK, and then we'll talk to him for a little bit, and then we'll get the next guest in here, because I said I'd bring in AK. AK, can you hear me?
Just before you do that,
yeah.
did you want to give him a minute or two reason to believe the resurrection is the truth?
We got to get to some other people.
Okay,
so,
okay, that's fine. Cool.
Anyway, so how you doing, AK? Are you a Muslim?
Yup. Happy New Year.
All right, cool. So we got a couple people in the queue I want to get to. So why don't you tell us your evidence that you believe Islam is true?
Okay. Well, the Quran makes a claim that it's the author of the God of Abraham is authored the Quran, and the logic of the Quran trumps anything you guys have. So
why?
For me, that's proof enough that it's the final revelation.
Wait. Why?
Wait.
What do you mean why?
Hold on. Let me understand. What you seem to be saying is the Quran asserts that it's true, and that's all the evidence you need. Is that really what you're saying?
It's proven itself to be true.
How?
Not
okay.
that
How
says
did it prove
it's true.
itself? How did it prove itself?
The whole entire logic of it, so I can't pick one by one. But if you have a question, we can go off.
No. I want to know why we should believe the Quran is from God. What is the actual evidence, other than the fact that it claims that it is?
No, seriously.
That's not evidence.
The what it claims and the logic of what it stands by, and the how it defends itself, how it challenges itself, how it offers the challenge, how it's coherent with previous scriptures. The whole logic of it is proven to be the word of God.
Okay.
That's my explanation. That's it. I mean, if you have-
okay, that's not an explanation, but let me help you out here. What you're trying to do is say that it's accumulation of evidence, right? It's not one
Correct.
particular fact.
Yeah.
But a totality of evidence argument is a good argument, but that's made up of pieces. So can you give us an example, right?
I mean, but based on personal belief or what?
An example of something that you think would stand up to scrutiny as a valid piece of evidence for the truth.
Okay. So it'll claim that Jesus never claimed to be God, and then we can look at the New Testament and see that it's true. Jesus never claimed to be God.
Wait, are you sure about that?
No, I'm positive. Word for word, claim to be God. I know you're gonna come up with some other ways to interpret it that he meant to say that, and that's fair. I can grant you that you could take a whole bunch of the New Testament and conclude, right? But he never claimed to be God. So the logic that the Quran,
he never used the exact words, "I am God, worship me." Yes, that's what you're trying to say.
Yeah. So no, but hold on. Here's my point. What the Quran is trying to say is that they got it wrong, and we can see that. So we can see that, right? So that's what I believe that. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So here's your argument, and IP can
let's see if you
lay this down pretty quickly, I think. But your argument is basically the Quran makes a claim, and if you look at the New Testament objectively, it's
not only
the Gospels.
No, I'm saying it's not all about the New Testament. It's not all about Christians. That's what I'm saying. It's the whole entire Quran.
Yeah. This particular piece of evidence, not every piece of evidence, but this particular piece of evidence.
I guess I only went with that because you guys are Christians. But go ahead.
Well, I mean, we can only go with what you give us. You could have given us anything.
I tried to tell you. I mean, if you have a question, I can challenge. I could try to challenge it. Other than
Listen, here's what I'm hearing. The Quran is true because it says Jesus never claimed to be God. We go to the New Testament, and you would say the New Testament never has Jesus claim to be God. Therefore, the Quran is true. That doesn't logically follow.
One of the thousands of accurate claims of the Quran.
Listen, okay, so if I make a claim, and I
one
say
of thousands, complete pure accuracy.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I make thousands of claims, like let's say I just say 2 + 2 = 4, 2 + 3 = 5.
So that's a dumb claim.
2 + 4
a kid can do that.
But if I did 1,000 of those, would that mean that I am therefore a prophet?
No, because
there you go. So just making claims that are true does not make you a prophet.
I mean, a kid can do that, but the Prophet Muhammad at that time could not create a book like this. He did not author the Quran.
How do you know that?
If you even admitted that you couldn't understand how the Quran came to be, right?
No. That's not what I said. That's not what I said. I don't know how it was fully formed in the human fashions. It could have taken some pre-Islamic traditions. It could all go back to Muhammad. There's many different theories. I'm not saying, I have no clue. I'm saying there's many different theories.
That's more proof that that's from God, because the fact that you are trying to be so smart, right, and you can't even understand it. What's the other logical answer?
AK, you are not being fair. He didn't say he couldn't understand it. He said that the historical evidence, allows for multiple plausible explanations and is not definitive which of those
and one of them is a revelation from God.
Well, you just said yes. You just agreed that there's other plausible explanations.
But let me ask you a question. If it is indeed the revelation of God, the final revelation, would you guys become Muslim?
If it was,
if there was sufficient evidence, sure.
Okay, yeah. So let me try to see what evidence would I give you?
I haven't get any so far.
Well, honestly, it's just you have to see. I read the whole book, and I know I'm sure you have.
Yeah. I got you. I understand exactly what you're doing, right? This is actually how I'd argue for Christianity. I'd argue based on a totality of evidence that the best explanation for the historical facts is that Jesus rose from the dead. Now, let me ask you this, right? Do you believe the Quran is the literal speech of God?
The literal speech? Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure, because, that's the standard Islamic belief, but not everyone believes that. So would it be correct that the Quran cannot contain any errors if it is Allah's literal speech, God's literal speech?
Yes, but with the clarification that the Quran is defined as revelation. So the books that we have, if there's one small little word difference, a sentence or something, the revelation itself has been preserved and none can change the words of God. In that sense, yes.
Okay, fair enough. If the Quran contains a logical error, would
Yeah,
that...
it wouldn't be the word of God.
Okay, so Surah 4, verse 82. Then do they not reflect upon the Quran? If it had been from other than Allah, they would have found within it much contradiction.
Correct.
Do you agree?
Yep.
That is a correct statement?
Yeah, I stand by it.
What is the logical proposition here? If something, then something.
Correct.
Right? So for this to be a correct logical statement, this is going to have to hold as a general principle. So it's speaking about the Quran, obviously, but it's saying if it didn't contain any air, right? Or it technically says much, but we'll just grant any, right? So if it had been from someone other than Allah, if it was not from God, then it would have air, right?
Yep.
That is logically equivalent to if it has no air, then it is from God. Do you agree?
What was the first one you said?
So as worded, it's if not Allah, from Allah, then air.
If not,
That's logically
Allah,
that's logically equivalent to if no air,
correct. Okay.
then from Allah.
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay, and just for those who don't know, that's called the contrapositive. That is logically valid to inverse the statement that way. Is it true that anything that is without air comes from Allah?
Yes.
Really?
Anything that is without error in the Quran, from the revelation of the Quran?
No. It's establishing a test. It's establishing a test. And for the test to have any meaning, it has to be generally true. So is it generally true that if I write something of sufficient length, I'll grant you it has to be of sufficient length. It can't just be one statement. But if I write something of sufficient length and it has no errors in it, then it is from God. Because a human will always err no matter what.
No, I'm okay. I don't understand it because I'm only talking about the Quran.
Right.
Not something you write.
But this is in the Quran, and it's a logical proposition advanced by the Quran.
But it's referring to the contents of the Quran.
Yes, but it's a test on the Quran. For it to be a meaningful test, it has to hold outside the Quran. Otherwise, it's special pleading.
I don't agree with that.
Which is a logical fallacy.
I don't agree with that. I mean, I think I have to read the verse, but I'm sure that it's referring to.
Well, I read it for you, and you agreed. That's why I read it first and said, "Is that correct?" What it says, but feel free to call it up. Surah 4, verse 82. This is just the context. The context here is that Allah is speaking to a group of hypocrites, people who pretend to be Muslims, say they are Muslims, but then go and defy Allah. And then the response was, why are they doing this? Why are they doing this? Well, because they haven't looked at the Quran and seen that
exactly the Quran. Okay.
Yes, but it's a test. It's a test that's established. For the test to have any meaning, that's like me saying, if this cup is yellow, then Christianity is true, which that was not great since it's being
I don't think you're conflicting the cup with Christianity, because Allah is saying in that verse, read the Quran and you'll know this is from God, right? Because he's claiming that...
he's inversing, but he's establishing a logical proposition. It would be a true statement if this contains if this contains air, then it can't be from God. I agree that would be a logically correct statement. But that's not what he claims. He claims that that would be a negative test. He wants to establish a positive test. He wants to establish a positive test that you know for sure that this is from Allah because it doesn't contain air. Or too much air, technically.
Okay, but it's not saying refer to like the cat in the hat, or look for a small little
why not? Why not? How is the test valid if it only applies to the Quran?
I don't agree. I don't agree with that logic. I mean, if you want to just say that, I mean, I don't agree with your logic on that specific. I don't agree with that. That wouldn't.
Well,
seem
I mean, that's basic logic. We got a philosopher here, inspiring philosophy. Am I correctly stating logical propositions here?
Yeah, I mean, like, I hate being called that.
But you guys don't hold that same standard to yourself. That's the problem.
I have it on like my TikTok, and I'm like, because my social media guy told me to put it up there, and my professor was like, technically you can say that. And I'm like, I don't feel whatever.
To be a philosopher just means to think deeply. Anyway,
fair enough.
You've been trained in logic, right? That's part of your educational background. Am I correctly stating logical principles here? Right.
Yeah, it sounds, the way it's coming out sounds pretty clear. I would need to just, as always, when it comes to
Mike,
philosophy, it's always
no
check
disrespect,
something,
but if
you
you're
know.
not a Muslim, then the logic is not all there.
Okay, well, if that's the case, here's what you just said, though. Here's what you just said. This stuff can't be logical until we already think it's true. So there's no reason to ever believe in this stuff unless we first blindly accept it.
Well, but that's hypocritical because you blindly accept the Bible at the end of the day through faith.
No, we do not. No, we don't.
No, everybody does. At the end of the day, there's a little bit of faith. You have to agree.
Okay, but that's not what you said. You said there's a little bit of faith, but first you said you blindly accept the Bible. That's different.
No, oh yeah. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, there's a little bit of faith that makes it belief.
Well, yeah, there's faith that the walls are not going to come collapsing in on me now.
I mean,
there's plenty of sufficient evidence they're not going to.
If your faith
what
was
is the
true,
sufficient? Let's just get back to the main topic. What is the sufficient evidence for you to believe in the Quran?
I gotta agree with Thaddeus here. He said he would approach that the same way.
Well, yeah, except
he would approach it the same way.
Okay, here's the problem. Right? That a cumulative case is valid, right? That's a valid way to establish truth.
So move on for that. Okay.
Hold on. However, a single counterexample is valid to disprove something.
Okay.
So one of the propositions of Islam is that the Quran is the literal speech of Allah, and I just provided you a counter proof that it is not the literal speech of Allah. And your argument, your response basically boiled down to, well, when you think about it like a Muslim, but see, the problem is the verse is given as a piece of evidence to people who are not being Muslims, people who are rebelling against Muhammad. So it's supposed to be a test for me. It's supposed to be a test for me, not for you. So I can't think of it like a Muslim. I'm supposed to look at this and be like, you're right. The Quran is free of errors, therefore it's from God. But I see an error. I see many other errors, but I see an error in that statement in and of itself. That statement is an error. It establishes an invalid logical proposition.
Okay,
because the conclusion does not follow from the premise that invalidates the proposition itself. A proposition as a whole is false if the conclusion doesn't follow from the premise. And the conclusion of that verse doesn't follow from the premise of that verse. Therefore, that verse is false, and it can't be from an all-knowing creator.
I mean, you can say that if you want, but look, I can kind of reverse that and try. I don't like to get lost in small details.
It's not a small detail to me.
No, I mean, think about it like this. So could God actually create something that has contradictions in it? Is that even possible? Could the reverse happen?
No, God does no contradictions.
But could he create something? I mean, not within him,
sure,
but could he create something?
It, but God doesn't contradict. Is that a better way to rephrase that?
It just logically doesn't follow, though. Is another issue here.
Well, okay, so based on that, God, when I said God does not contradict, what I'm saying is the Quran does not contradict anything else. The Quran,
it certainly contradicts other things.
Yeah, it does.
No, it confirms previous divine scripture, and it fully aligns with the Abrahamic faith. The whole story of
it doesn't.
The Abrahamic faith, it makes sense for the Quran to be the logical final revelation. Bottom line, that's my conclusion.
What do you mean it's firmly in line with the Abrahamic faith? And we're gonna let you go in a minute because I want to bring up Dean Responds. But what are you talking about?
So it affirms the Abrahamic faith, and it corrects. It corrects where where it claims. It corrects where it claims the people.
Wait, hold on a second. You're saying it's correcting. But you also said it doesn't contradict. Isn't a correction by necessity a contradiction?
No, because it's not confirming everything.
Where does it say that?
It's confirming only what God revealed.
Okay, so let's just follow the logic here. So the Quran, you agree the Quran says we should believe in it because it's confirming our scriptures in places like Surah 2:4, 241, right?
When you say we, who's we?
Me, Christians, Jews.
Yeah, you're supposed to believe in the Quran and previous revelation.
Let's follow this logic then. Okay, so but the Quran is correcting the prior scriptures and telling us the parts that we should believe in, right?
No. Let me correct that. It's correcting undivine scripture and it's confirming divine scripture.
What? What is the what divine scripture is it confirming then that
What
exists
God
today?
revealed. You said it
Which
yourself
is?
in all the verses.
Okay,
Which
so
is what?
we use the Quran to figure out what is true in the previous scriptures, then we use what is in the previous scriptures to believe in the Quran, right?
No. You use the previous. No, you don't need to use the previous scriptures to confirm what's in the Quran. You don't need to. You use the Quran to confirm previous scripture, okay, and to read. It teaches you which scripture is not from God.
So
Right?
then what's the evidence to believe in the Quran?
The Quran itself, like Thad said, the whole accumulative whatever. I mean,
You're not giving us anything. We've been talking for like 20
I
minutes.
told
You're
you
not
the whole
giving us
entire
anything.
book. At the end of the day, it's the whole entire book.
AK, come back when you have actual evidence for us to believe in this book. I appreciate you coming, but you've not given us any evidence.
Let me ask you one question.
No.
Do you believe?
We're done, man. I'm not going to keep doing circles with him. I just like...
He has a cumulative case, but he can't give a single example from that case, other than that in the Bible, Jesus doesn't claim to be God.
Which, again, wouldn't even be true. Like I just, like, this doesn't logically follow.
I know, but when we started to go down that way, he's like, well, you can interpret it as he's saying it, but I interpreted it otherwise.
I know. It's like, you want to play that game with me? I mean... All right, we'll get to some super chats here real fast, and then we'll jump to the next guest. Hi, Mike. I love your videos. Unfortunately, I'm feeling an inevitable pull towards becoming a Muslim. Can you direct me to the best scholarly books? I'm really struggling day to day and antidepressants agnostic here. So best scholarly sources on this stuff. So I would check out Martin Whittingham's book on that. Gordon Nichols got a great book on this. Check out some of the videos we did on this channel. Check out Than's videos. Check out the videos we've done on the Islamic dilemma. And again, look at the stream we're doing today. What is the actual evidence to believe in Islam? Is it just a depressing thing? Weigh the evidence here. And of course, I was going to bring this up earlier, so I'm just going to share my screen now. I want to make a challenge, and I've challenged people to do this before. Go through the series I have on my channel. These 15 videos, this last one is just a completion of them all, of all the evidence for the gospel, the reliability of the gospels. Pay attention to this one. So there's a lot of scholarly sources in here on evidence for Christianity. Check out this. Check out some of the videos we've done on here as well. I'm trying to remember what Whittingham's book is titled. I always forget the title of his book. So let me just grab that really fast for you, because I think it was a pretty good book, and it's useful for supporting the Islamic dilemma. It's History of Muslim Views of the Bible, the First 4 Centuries by Martin Whittingham. So that's a good book. Check out Robert Hoyland's book, In God's Path, on how the Muslim conquests could just, how you can explain that in purely naturalistic terms. But I mean, like, the other thing you got to keep in mind is they need to show actual evidence this is true. Christians have done this with the evidence for the resurrection. So we need to see more of that kind of stuff. Did that one earlier. Or did I? New Year's is pagan only because they are afraid. Yes, true. For your Libyano debate, you should really press the fact that Muslims have no epistemic standard to see which parts of the Bible are reliable. I'll think about what you said. New Year's is pagan except arithmetic, because arithmetic is haram. It's very, very rude. Very rude. If the world were to end, would that disprove theism? No, not necessarily, because a God could exist that wanted to destroy the world. That doesn't logically follow. How does original sin fit in with evolution? Were early humans just sinless? Trey, the best thing to do is to check out my Genesis 1 to 11 series, where I talk about all those subjects right there for you. I don't have time to really get into it now, but yeah, check out those subjects as well. All right, let's bring up our next guest. You guys ready? We got a very special guest that just showed up.
Yeah, I heard it's going to be Dean Responds. I'm very, very eager to meet him.
Dean, can you hear us?
What's going on? Yep, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Doing good. Have you met Thaddeus?
No, I know of Thaddeus. Yeah, I know of him.
All right, so it's great for you to spend some time blessing an ignoramus like myself.
No, yeah, it's all good. I like I believe in charity, so.
Okay. So what's on your mind? Why'd you come in today? We're talking about with the evidence for Islam.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, I'm gonna continue from what we were discussing last time on, the Quran is reviving the earliest Christology. So there's something called the True Gospel.
I thought we were talking about the Islamic dilemma. mostly.
Oh,
in
before
that
that,
one.
when Joshua Sijawadi was
Oh,
discussing with
okay.
me, then we went into Q. So so after Joshua Sijawadi had left, so we made the claim that based on what Kloppenberg said, that Q is a logical necessity, right? But then you guys misinterpreted that as modal logic, when in fact he's just saying that it's the most probable conclusion that makes the best sense of the data, right?
Yeah, it's a
So
horrible phrase. It's a
yeah,
horrible term to use, but
do you
okay, if
agree
that's
that's what
what you
Kloppenberg was saying?
if he's saying, he seems to be saying it's the most logical conclusion from the data he's presenting. I thoroughly disagree, but yeah.
Okay, no problem. So we can discuss that. So do you believe Luke copies from Matthew?
I'm very agnostic on all that stuff. From reading people
no
like
problem.
Craig Evans,
So
for example.
no problem. So I'm just gonna lay it out also for the audience, for everyone to know like exactly what we're talking about, because maybe they're saying like, oh, what's Q, right? So basically, there's verbatim material between Matthew and Luke that scholars have posited there's a Q gospel, which is an earlier gospel that Matthew and Luke copy from, right? So there's already an assumption. I'm going to assume that you believe that Matthew and Luke copies from Mark, because it's verbatim material between Matthew and Luke that's in Mark. Is that safe to assume?
They seem to use Mark as a source, yeah.
Okay, beautiful. One of the arguments we can bring, so just so people know we're not just saying it and repeating to scholars, is writer's fatigue. Matthew copies from Mark, then later on first of all he changes something. So for example, I think it's like in Matthew 11, where he changes the detail of Herod being called a king. Then he goes on to call Herod a king, right? So this is like arguments from writer's fatigue. That's probably one of the best arguments to show that Matthew copies from Mark, and same thing with Luke. So the point is that the same way that there's verbatim material between Matthew and Luke that we find within Mark, we also find verbatim material between Matthew and Luke, and that needs to be explained. So there's either you say the main two hypotheses today is either there's a gospel they copy from we don't have access to, or Luke just copied from Matthew, okay? So what I'm going to be positing is that Q exists for two reasons. The first reason is that when Luke copies from Mark, so this is going to be a refutation that Luke copies from Matthew. When Luke copies from Mark, he copies it in chronological order. Do we agree?
So when Luke copies from Mark, he's going through chronological order. I believe that is correct.
Okay. So when Luke copies from Matthew, it's not in chronological order.
Yeah, I think that is correct. Again, this is all so much.
There's
heavily
the
debated.
exception of the so-called minor coincidences where Luke and Matthew agree against Mark.
Yeah, so those ones are in the minimal exceptions. They're not the general rule. So if you just share my screen here.
I'm just saying it's not universal.
Of course, it's not. Yeah. So if we're just establishing right now that we can see that it's not chronological order. So when Luke copies from Matthew, so the first saying that he will be copying from Matthew is the 14th saying that's found in Matthew. And then it goes on and goes on and goes on and goes on, okay? So that's how it is. Now, if we just go back, because we want obviously the audience to also benefit from this. So Luke copies from Matthew. Hypothesis renders the idea that Luke would have to have two methods of copying. He copies in chronological order with Mark, and then he copies in a chronological order with Matthew. Sorry, not in a non-chronological order. Sorry, with Matthew. Now, that's you got to give a reason for that, right? But that's not the main reason why this position is bloated, right? Because you could say, okay, maybe Luke had different copying methods for one and not for the other, right? But the reason why this is so bloated now is Luke would have to be copying from Matthew in a way where he ensures when he copies from Matthean material that's only in Matthew, not in Mark, he would have to ensure that material remains in a non-chronological fashion while also maintaining that Mark maintains this other method where he copies in chronological order. So basically, he would be copying from Matthew and sifting through between Matthew and Mark to ensure there's these two distinct copying methods, which is
I'm not
unlikely and bloated.
What is the point?
That's what I was about to ask. I'm going to let you keep going. Are you leading
point.
to like an argument for Islam?
That's the point, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I'm going to let you keep going. But here, let me just tell you what my specific view on this before we spend too much time on this. I'm not actually even against Q existing. My view is that Q cannot be reconstructed, though.
So why don't you believe that you can reconstruct it?
Great question. I'm so happy you asked that. Okay, have you ever heard of? So you agree that Matthew and Luke use Mark as a source, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Could you reconstruct Mark from just what you find in Matthew and Luke? Let's say we didn't have Mark anymore. Could we reconstruct it from just what we find in Matthew and Luke?
Most of it.
No. What do you mean by most?
So
do you mean like 70%, 80%?
How much? Yeah. So how much do you think Matthew and Luke actually copies from Mark?
We already have a scholar. His name is Joseph Weeks. He wrote a paper. It's the last chapter of the book, Empirical Models Challenging Biblical Criticism. I'll say that again. Empirical Models Challenging Biblical Criticism. Joseph Weeks wrote the last paper. And in that, he goes through and says, no, you get basically another document he calls Mark Q. It's only 52% of Mark.
Yeah, we're gonna have to look at where he gets that number from, because I've seen numbers ranging from 52, 60, 70, 80.
Yeah,
so we got
to. I'll tell you how you get those numbers, Dean.
I got to check your source,
you
because last time you cited. One second. So I have to check your source, because last time you cited James Tabor, you got him wrong, saying that he believes Jesus prophesied his death and resurrection. So I got to check your sources.
So I'll pull it up here in a second here.
How you get those numbers is because you have Mark, so you know what's in Mark.
Exactly.
The point is, if you didn't have Mark, you couldn't conclude that these things come from a document or another gospel or whatever, right? You wouldn't be able to draw that conclusion without the existence of Mark. Yes, most of the material of Mark does appear in at least one of the two other gospels, Matthew and Luke, but that doesn't mean you can reconstruct Mark from those. And in particular, you certainly couldn't construct things word for word. As you said, there are minor differences between them. And often the version in Mark is longer and more extensive than the version in either of the other two. So you could not reconstruct Mark. You could get the general ideas of what might be found in it, but you couldn't reconstruct the document, let alone do what I would say unwise scholars try to do, and determine the theology of that document based on your reconstruction. That's several levels removed from reality by that point.
Hey, Dean, can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, so this is the paper, Limited Efficiency in Reconstructing the Gospel Sources for Matthew and Luke. So it's as I said, last chapter of that book. He goes through and he's showing the stuff. You can see him here. He's comparing the passage in Matthew in what would be Mark Q. That is his reconstruction of Mark in Luke here. So you can see him going through this.
So where does he give that percentage that you gave?
I'm going to find it here. So you get 52% words, for example, is what I was going on. 63% of the verses, 73% of the pericopes, 51% of the characters. So it's 51% of the words is what I was remembering. So
okay, no problem. So as we can see here, there's
percentage of Mark and all of Mark.
All of them. Okay, no problem. So what we have here is 63% of the verses. So that's higher than when you gave me 52. So it's glad we double checked this. So
I meant words.
But no, the words are important, Dean. The words are important because you're going to draw the theology from the specific word choices, not from the general story. So the words.
Yeah. So from what we know, but from what we know about Q, is there anything within there that contradicts Islam?
I'm not agreeing we even can reconstruct it.
No, from what we know, what's in Q.
We don't know what was in Q, is my point.
No, we do. We know generally what's in Q the same way we know generally what's in Mark from Matthew and Luke, as you just showed.
No. We know what's in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and we know that where there's agreement. We don't have Q is my point. My point is we cannot reconstruct it.
No, dude, listen.
And Dean, I'm going to make this point obvious for you. I'm going to make this point obvious. If we didn't have Mark, then all the things that Matthew and Luke have in common that are not put in the Q category because they're found in Mark would then be put into the shared source, right? There'd be one proposed shared source and would have all the things that Matthew and Luke have in common, which would include all the things that you want to throw out and say those weren't in Q. So if Q existed, it could easily have those things in it.
Yeah, but that's
Q is just a name given to the shared source material.
So, let me just respond to what you said. So the point is that we can only speak of Q based on what we know from the source. So first we have to establish, do you agree that the source exists?
I believe there was a sayings gospel that Papias talks about, for example.
Okay, beautiful. So we can grant that. So from what we know what's in that sayings gospel, is there anything that contradicts Islam?
my point is we don't know what was in that saying's gospel. And
We
here's
do know
the other
generally.
thing.
Okay, so let's bring it back to the paper you brought. When he brings up Mark Q, whatever you put up on the screen, right? We can still know generally what Mark taught from the common material between Matthew and Luke, right? So that's what we're saying here. We can know generally what Q taught based on the
We could know
the
generally
commonalities between
part
Matthew and
of
Luke.
what it taught. Part of what it taught.
But we can
Yeah,
only know what it taught based on what we have.
So here's a question I have for you. So let's say we could reconstruct part of Q, and it's like just Jesus saying a couple things. Does that mean we know the entire theology of the Q author?
No, of course, there's stuff that you could say
Okay.
is beyond that, but
There-
we can
but this is
only
my
claim as to what. Yeah, just let me finish what I'm saying. So we can only make a claim as to what is in Q based on what we have. Now, anything else is just speculation at that point, whether he's going to be talking about other things that, obviously would contradict Islam, but that's a speculative. What I'm asking you is, based on what we know from Q, is there anything in there that contradicts Islam?
Again,
I'm
I
sure
don't
there
think
is.
we can reconstruct it. But here's my point here. So you're going off hypothetical.
From what we can reconstruct. I'm not saying we can reconstruct the whole thing.
Hold on, I let you finish. Let me finish now.
Yeah,
You're going
go
off a hypothetical document, hypothetical author. Okay. And if you could pick out, for example, let's say all we had of Genesis was, let us make man in our own image. Let's say that's all we had from the entire Gospel of Genesis. We would not know the author's theology. We'd not
The
know
Gospel of Genesis?
Sorry, yeah, my mistake. Good call. But yeah, it was all we had was the book of Genesis, is what I meant to say. All we had was that. Okay.
Yeah.
And all we had was the line, let us make man in our own image. We would not be able to conclude if he was a polytheist or a monotheist. We wouldn't be able to conclude anything about what he believed. So you're trying to go on what Q has here based on just a couple things you think were in there. That's not evidence of what he believed or what his full gospel was. I mean, I think it probably included a lot of stuff that was in Mark if you're going to push me into a corner and make me speculate.
Yeah. So the issue with that is that it's this analogous where you're bringing, because just Genesis 1:27, I think there's a reference. Genesis 1:27 talks about making man in their image, but you can't really know about what the author is saying here because you need more context. You need some more other verses to clarify. But dude, Q is bigger than just one verse. It's a whole set of verses. I can bring it up on the screen right now for us to look at.
I mean, allegedly, it's not like we have a doc. It's people are reconstructing this. Is the point?
Yeah. How else would you explain the material then? I gave you two hypotheses you can posit. Either Luke copied from Matthew or this Q. So we're gonna have to first establish that point. First, we've established, I thought, that Q exists. You said you don't mind granting that.
He said he didn't mind. That doesn't mean he affirms it exists.
Okay, give an argument against it. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Thaddeus.
Well, the lack of material evidence, right? So it is primarily sayings of Jesus, right? It's primarily things that Jesus is said to have said. It doesn't contain most of the biographical details added, quote unquote, added by the Gospels. Well, why can't people have just remembered the sayings of Jesus from memory? If it's only sayings?
That's a very weak response. So the reason
No,
why it's a weak response is, I mean, if you want to finish, you can finish, but I'm going to respond. Go ahead.
Well, you're ignoring, first of all, you said those were the only two hypotheses. There's actually like dozens of hypotheses.
Within scholarly circles, within scholarly circles, those are the two most common.
No, that is not true. The two dominant theories within scholarly circles are the Q hypothesis or the two gospel hypothesis, in which Mark uses Matthew and Luke as a source.
No, that's wrong. So, which scholar do you know has that? Which scholar do you know has that theory?
That is not wrong.
Which scholar has that theory? Tell me one.
I don't know the names of scholars off the top of my head.
So Mike can help us out because he told us last time that Mark Goodacre holds to Luke copying from Matthew, and I respect that. Scholarly circles hold to that position. There's two main positions: Luke copying from Matthew. And
those are not the two main. No. The two source hypothesis.
You can't even give me one scholar.
You have the two source and the two gospel. I can look up a list of names if that's all you want.
How do you know even exists? Where did you get it from? Which scholar did you read it from?
What do you mean? How do I?
Which scholar did you read this from?
Because I didn't memorize a list of scholars.
Just tell me one scholar.
Therefore, it doesn't exist. Okay. Gotcha.
Give me
Just
one
give me
scholar
1
that you
second.
read
I'll
this
give you a
from.
list of like 10, 20,
Okay,
30
look.
names. It's a
Let's-
very
Where have you heard
common
this from?
hypothesis.
Where have you read this from?
All right. Well, let's let him.
I've
get
been
that.
to seminary. I've been to seminary. Like
Let's
these are
say-
the two things you study.
Let's let him get that. Dean, what is the point you're trying to make at? Because we're
Alright,
getting
the point-
lost in the
okay,
weeds now.
Okay, the point I'm trying to make is Q does exist. There's good arguments to exist. There's no arguments against it to prove that it doesn't exist. And the claim that I want to respond to what Thaddeus said as well in a second regarding why can't it just be oral traditions. But regardless of that, the Q gospel doesn't contradict Islam. It's the earliest gospel that we can reconstruct to a great extent.
We
I
can't.
agree. I agree with you. We can't reconstruct the whole thing. But from what we can reconstruct, nothing within there contradicts Islam. And there's quite a lot of material within there. Now, Thaddeus said, how do we know it's not just oral traditions? The way we know this is, I'll give you an analogy. If me and you go to court and we both witness a crime, and then we both describe the crime scene verbatim the same, word for word constructs about how it happened, who was there, what was the details that was there, and it's pretty much verbatim the same between me and you. People are going to assume that we colluded with each other. Is that not correct?
Oh yeah. If it's word for word, people are going to assume you colluded.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, appreciate it. So the same way, we know that Q is not just using oral traditions because it's verbatim the same between Matthew and Luke.
Again, I'm perfectly fine with saying Matthew used or Mark as a source. The thing I'm saying though is that we have that and we can compare and contrast. My issue with
not
Q,
Matthew using Mark as a source. Matthew using Q. You mean?
Yeah, the problem is, again, I don't take a stance on any of that because, again, I think it's impossible to reconstruct it. Now, here's the point I'm trying to make with you, which I think we're just talking past one another, is even if you could reconstruct part of Q, that does not tell us what the full document was, what the full point of it was. It's just some parts in there that you would pick out and say, yeah, we like that, we don't like that. But I mean, like, that doesn't change anything. That doesn't tell us anything. It just says, okay, well, there's some things in there that were probably there. It's the same thing why I brought up Joseph Weeks' paper there. We could reconstruct part of Mark, but we wouldn't know what the document was or what he was actually trying to preach or say.
Yeah, so just share my screen here if you don't mind. 1 second. Here we go. Yeah. Okay. So this is just from Kloppenberg's work again, okay? So your argument would have veracity if it was like small parts of the gospel, but it's not. It goes from Q3 and then all these verses, and it goes all the way down. All of this material.
Yeah, I know this is how Kloppenberg reconstructs
if you had a like the hypothetical document you brought up before with Mark, if that was the case, and then we have this much material that we can derive from Mark, it'll give us a pretty good idea about what Mark's preaching because it's still going down, bro. Look at this.
I literally just said we'd have a pretty good idea, but we would not know his full theology or what the full point of the document was. Again, so here's the point, though, when we're going to connect this back to Islam. That does not that is insufficient to establish his full theological view in terms of what he was trying to believe, what he was trying to say. And if you want, now I know you're a proponent of the idea that it was okay for Jesus to call God Father in that time, but most Muslims don't agree with you, for example.
No, but they're in the minority in terms of classical scholarship. So Ibn Taymiyyah, Imam al-Ghazali, Imam al-Tufi, Ibn Kathir, people from the Salaf such as At-Tabari, not the Tafsir At-Tabari, another Tabari, convert from Christianity. So what you have here is the most of classical scholarship agree with me. So I don't care what most layman Muslims have to say on the topic.
Yeah, I'm just granting you that. So you're just to be clear, you're okay with Jesus calling God Father.
Yeah, so Father in the sense of a metaphorical, like calling God Father in a metaphorical fashion, that's fine. But if he means it in an ontological fashion where God is his literal Father sharing in his nature, obviously that's incompatible.
So Jesus cannot have a special relationship with the Father, is what you're saying in Q.
He could have a special relationship, but not in a way where he shares in God's ontology. I don't know what's funny, Thaddeus.
I'm just trying to
because
follow what
you know where he's going, and you're intentionally avoiding
No,
it because you
there's
know
no
that there are
problem in saying
verses within Q. You know there are verses within Q that are not consistent with Islamic theology.
No, there's
And
nothing
you're
in
just going
there.
to reinterpret those verses.
Give me one. Give me one that's incompatible. Go ahead.
So if I was, I was talking about the Father verses, for example, like when you pray, say Father.
Incompatible, no. Yeah.
So it's okay for us today to pray the Lord's Prayer?
No. So let me tell you my position. My position is the same way that many scholars already held this in the past, such as, could we say Lord in the past and not say it today? Could we say Father in the past and not say it today? That's the discussion going on. You find within early exegetes of Islam, such as in Surah Yusuf, right? You find in Surah Yusuf, Joseph called the king at his time Lord, but doesn't mean he literally believes that he is the Lord of the heavens and the earth. So what scholars have said on that is, yeah, it's possible in the past it was allowed, but now it's been abrogated. I take the same position as do many scholars, classical scholars hold to, that in the past it could have been used, Father, but today we don't use it because in our sources today, our Islamic sources, there's nothing to indicate that we can use it today. We only take what the latest revelation gives us to use.
I'm going to pull something up for you because there is something I do want to talk about in Q, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So you remember your debate with Coley, right?
Yep.
Okay. You brought up, for example, the whole Lord, you know the Lord argument, right? That
Yes,
Jesus,
I do,
it
yeah.
does in Q say that he is Lord, right?
Yes.
Okay. You said in earliest manuscripts, so just for the audience's sake, you agree that in Q, Jesus does say he's Lord, right?
Yes, from what I remember, yes.
Okay. Your reply, what was your, can you just tell me your reply to Coley? I want to, instead of me trying to steelman you, why don't you just say it?
Yeah, from what I remember, I made a very quick response that it's not in the earliest manuscripts, Lord, in the Septuagint, but I can even grant it is, and I still think the argument's bad.
Okay, so the argument for those who don't know is that in Q and in the Gospels, Jesus calls himself Lord. The only other person ever make that claim is Yahweh. Well, it's in Ezekiel, it's in the Psalms, it's in the Septuagint. So in the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible, we see, for example, God being called Lord, Kiri, and Jesus has, and so there's nowhere in any Greek text from that time or prior does anyone ever called Lord other than Jesus and Yahweh. So when Jesus is calling himself that seems to be, as according to scholars like Staples, Michael Patrick Barber, Charles Corrals, Robert Bowman Jr., Ed Komashevsky, this is Jesus definitively claiming to be God. And so what is your reply to that? Instead of me just trying to steelman it, just go ahead and say it.
Yeah, so the response is, one, a lot of scholars, majority of them, Jason Staples is the scholar that actually made this popular. So if you just share my screen here. So Jason Staples says himself that there's evidence based on like the earliest manuscripts having this development. Basically, the development here is that in the Septuagint, early on, there wasn't this version where Kiri was the divine name. Rather, it would have been different forms of the divine name rather than Kiri, but this is a Christian evolution. That's what majority of scholars hold to. That's what Jason Staples says himself in his writing. He says, on the basis of this evidence, many scholars now regard Kiri as a later Christian standardization rather than the original rendering of the Old Greek. And then, yeah, so basically the point would just be that many scholars already conclude that this whole Lord thing is a Christian evolution within the manuscripts of the Septuagint rather than it being the earliest form of the divine name.
Have you looked in the most up-to-date critical edition of the Septuagint?
No, so I've looked at what Jason Staples says on the topic as well as Anthony Meyer.
Yeah, so here's a screenshot from the most up-to-date critical edition of Psalm 108:21. And he is pointing out it's in the majority of the manuscripts, it's in early, it's also in Codex Sinaiticus as well. It's Kiri. So we see in very early ones, we see that there. So the evidence.
How old is this one?
This is the critical edition. So this is the scholars who put this together, like what is it, like Göttinger, I believe is his name. He went through all of them, and it's in the overwhelming majority of the manuscripts, including majority of the early ones. We see Kiri in Psalm 108.
How early it is. So maybe the earliest manuscript we have for the Psalms here post dates what I'm saying, where the evolution occurred.
No, that's not what he's saying. It's only in later ones. It's in later ones.
No, what I'm asking is the early one. So where does where in this
the
critical
text
edition?
critical edition
in this
has already made that
critical
decision.
the critical edition is going to use the earliest they have. But how early is this
well,
thing that he
that's
has?
one criteria for text critical. It's not just we literally copy the earliest.
Yeah, but I want to know what's the earliest manuscript for this.
The
But
earliest
he's
one,
showing you the text critical edition, and it has made the decision that was part of the original text.
right?
Yeah.
So what
Based-
difference does it
yeah,
make what the
based on the
literal
fact-
first
yeah.
manuscript says?
So when is the earliest manuscript for this for the Psalms? Do you know?
For this one, I think it's Codex Sinaiticus. Now I could be wrong, but
Okay.
it's definitely in Codex Sinaiticus.
Okay, bro, that's late because I'm positing that the development happened after.
But you have
late
no
first
evidence.
Show me one.
So
Then show
I'll
me-
give you,
show
I'll give
me
you the.
one.
Yeah, I got
Show
you.
me
So
show
let
me an
just-
old Greek manuscript of Psalm 108:21.
Here, can you share my screen? So this is the scholarship I'm referring to. So
Hold up.
you're saying that it's in the Codex Sinaiticus, and the Codex Sinaiticus is 4th century. But as Anthony Meyer notes, the development we're positing comes comes earlier. So it says the start. So if we just read the context here. So
Go and read it.
manuscripts that date on paleographic grounds on the Second Temple period, because the content of the Greek translation is relatively consistent with the Hebrew Aramaic source text. We might assume that the same holds for divine names and epithets as transmission crossed from Jewish to Christian scribes. It would seem plausible, in other words, that terms for God found in Christian copies of the Septuagint would represent the same as in earlier pre-Christian copies. The startling reality, however, so he's refuting that, is that all Jewish Greek copies of the Septuagint before the late 1st century have surprisingly divergent divine name readings, none of which contain the standard title Kyrios. He says none of them. Regularly found in all Christian copies of the Septuagint, albeit in the Nomina Sacroform KC.
And
So,
we have and then you have one of Psalm 108:21 there.
say one more time.
Do you have Psalm 108:21 there?
I don't remember him bringing Psalm 108. No.
Right, because again, as the critical scholars have pointed out in the earliest editions where we see that verse, as well as Deuteronomy 3:24, it's kiti kiti. Now the verse in Ezekiel, if you actually go to the critical edition, there's only one kiti there in the critical edition. That's one of the verses Jason Staples uses. But in Psalm 108:21, Deuteronomy 3:24, it's kiti kiti. And so what they're saying is that is the most likely original of the first of the translation. So they did have kiti kiti.
So do you see how? So do you see how this, even on the basis of whether Lord was in the Septuagint early on, is already on speculative grounds? But I'll grant you it. So
Okay.
I'm going to grant you that in the earliest Septuagint manuscripts, that was the form. And when Jesus says it, he's claiming it. So that's your claim. And I'll grant you the Septuagint has it in the earliest form. So I'll grant that part of the argument. So when he says Lord there, they're going to call him Lord. In that context, there's more reason to assume that he's not claiming to be God there, just from the mere fact that sharing two titles between one another, right, doesn't tell us much about the concept, just more shows sharing titles. So we don't want to do the word concept fallacy here. So what I'm positing is that the concept of the theology in the Gospels is one of Jesus not being God, if you take a holistic case. So it just makes it very improbable that what you're saying is more likely, which is that Jesus is referring to the divine name. So I'll just go to a verse like Mark 10:18. Jesus says, "Why do you call me good? Only God is good." That's also in Matthew and Luke. So when Jesus says, "Why do you call me good? Only
Well,
God
hold
is
up,
good,"
hold up. This
he's
is Mark.
He's
You're talking about
subordinating
Q,
himself
though.
to the Father.
You're talking about Q though. Is that in Q?
That part, no. We can bring other parts in Q. No
But
problem.
okay, but you talked about Q though. You talked about the Q. You just granted that in the earliest versions of the Septuagint, it says Lord, Lord, and in Q, Jesus is calling himself Lord, Lord. So if you go to what Kloppenberg puts in Q, Luke 6:46,
Yep.
why do you call me Lord, Lord, and not do what I say? How is Jesus
Yeah.
not claiming to be God there?
Yeah, and I'm granting you that that's within Q. I thought you were making, because you were referencing back my debate, so I thought you were making the case just generally Jesus is God.
No, because we're talking about Q. We're talking about what is Q. You said Q is completely compatible with Islam, and I'm not sure it is. And there's one
it
reason
is.
right there.
Yeah, it is. So the reason why is we have no reason to assume high Christology within Q, so there's no reason for me to read high Christology into Lord there.
Well, this is now your circular argument. Okay, we
No,
assume that
no,
there's
it's not,
we
because-
assume there's no high Christology, so that can't be high Christology.
And we can actually give evidence for that assumption. Why? If you look at the earliest Christology within the earliest texts we have, no one thinks Jesus claiming to be God. So that's highly implausible to think that Q thinks that
What do you
Jesus
mean?
is God.
What do you mean? That's a
Okay,
nonsensical
okay.
argument.
Does anyone? Okay, I don't believe anyone in the first century.
I believe that
believed Jesus-
everyone believed Jesus to be
Okay,
God. And that's
okay,
why
let's-
Christianity
so let's
exists.
discuss
It wouldn't
that.
exist if the disciples didn't think
Okay,
that
I got
Jesus
you.
was God.
I got you. So
Post-resurrection.
let's use the earliest sources here. Let's use the earliest sources. So you want to say that Lord here with Q means he's claiming to be God. I'm saying that within all the texts we have, Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John, of what Jesus says, and in Thomas.
Hey, you want to use
nothing,
the earliest
nothing,
Well, that's not
text?
the
nothing-
earliest.
What do
Hold
scholars
up.
say the earliest
Wait,
text of the
you gotta
New
let me
Testament
finish.
is?
You gotta let me finish my point. You gotta let me finish my point.
But
My point is,
there's an
is that
issue though.
within all the sayings of Jesus that we have, none of it does he give a Christology where he's claiming equality with God. So there's no reason for me to think in Q he's claiming to be God.
Okay, hold
Hold
on.
on.
So
Can I
the
just
earliest
jump in for a second?
Yeah, but real quick, the earliest documents. You want to go to the earliest documents? That's
okay, you're gonna
all
say
in the
something.
pre-Pauline literature, like Philippians 2, where Jesus is called
Not
God.
claiming to be God.
In Philippians 2,
Philippians 2, within Mark, within Matthew, within Luke, within John.
okay, so here's what we're doing here. we're doing a circumstantial evidence argument instead of doing a proper exegesis of the text. Okay, if you're granting Lord, as the critical edition shows, was in the earliest manuscripts, and Jesus is claiming that would support our theory that, yeah, in Q, Jesus is claimed to be God. And by the way, this doesn't even work because even if you're right about Mark and Philippians 2, Q is just unique. And maybe that's the guy that was really the founder of Christianity and not Paul.
Yeah, you know that's so implausible, dude. So
Then show
is there
me
anything-
why
so-
Lord
so
doesn't
you-
mean God.
But
okay,
hold on,
I'll
hold on,
grant- I'll
Dean.
grant
Hold
you.
on, Dean.
So-
you said that
so
no
I'll
one
respond
believed
to what
Jesus
Mike
was
says.
God. You said no one believed Jesus was God.
Yeah.
Clearly,
Co-equal with the Father,
the
yeah.
pre-Pauline Christological creed of Philippians 2 believes Jesus to be God.
No.
So that is clearly someone believes that Jesus is God before the text of the Gospels was formulated.
No, that's wrong.
Right.
So if you mean God as in co-equal with the Father, that's not what Philippians 2 is saying.
Yeah, it is.
Nope.
What is it saying then? Let's hear your interpretation.
Yeah, let's go to it.
Let me just put on the screen. I'm going to put up the ESV
Yep.
because that tends to be the one I was most
all good.
used. So here, I'll read it for you, and then I would really like to hear your interpretation. We'll let you do that. So, have this mind among yourselves, which is yours in Christ Jesus, who though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped, but emptied himself by taking the form of a servant, being born in the likeness of men, and being found in human form, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross. Therefore, God has highly exalted him and bestowed on him the name that is above every name, so that at the name of Jesus, every knee shall bow in heaven and on earth and under
I
the
got
earth,
you.
and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, the glory of God the Father.
I got you. So if you just zoom in on that part where he says he gave him a name above all names.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So does Jesus inherently have the name above all names, or does he have to get given it?
He is given this as he's exalted after the resurrection. So he's lowered and then he's exalted back up to where he was originally.
Okay.
That's
Okay. So where is there an indication within the text here that he had it at any given point?
The first part, though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped.
Yeah. So what's the Greek there for when he says form of God? Are you familiar?
I do not know off the top of my hand. No, the top of my
Okay,
head.
no problem. So Ignatius uses that same Greek within his letter. If I just pull it up, 1 second. First, let me just have a look at the Greek here so I can have it. So he uses the same to refer to the believers. So I'll say your reading's anachronistic. It's not actually representing what Philippians. is
Well,
trying to say.
why are you appealing to a much later Christian letter and calling
That's-
that and calling
No,
our reading anachronistic?
Ignatius is early. You don't care what Ignatius has to say? He's early.
Well, you said you want to go in the earliest.
Yeah.
So this is
yeah.
what we're
I
doing.
mean,
We're going
Ignatius is
Q,
well
Pauline
after this
literature.
text.
Okay, if
right?
you, I'm quoting it for you, but if you don't care, that's fine. We can throw Ignatius under the bus. That's fine. So there's no reason for me to assume that he had the name above all names within the text here. And well, from what we know about Pauline Christians, I grant you, Mark is an early Pauline Christian. They didn't believe Jesus was co-equal with the Father. He says, "Why do you call me good? No one is good but God alone." What's your response to that?
Oh, that
Why do
one's
you call
easy.
me?
Just read the rest of the passage.
Rhetorical question.
Yeah, I want to hear what Mike has to say. Go ahead.
You want to hear what I so about Mark 10:18.
Yeah.
So just to acknowledge, we're now moving to Mark away from Q, right?
Because we want to know what Pauline Christians believed.
Okay, well, that's not even been established.
Hold on. What do you think?
These other assumptions.
What is your evidence that Mark is influenced by
You're trying
Paul?
to bring up the fact that
What is your
Philippians 2
influence
is saying that Jesus? Yeah.
What is your evidence that Mark is influenced by Paul?
Yeah, we need to get these assumptions justified first.
Yeah, there's no reason for me to think otherwise. His theology is quite clearly Pauline.
Well,
That's not a reason.
He talks about Jesus' death.
How do you
on
know
the cross.
Paul's theology isn't Markine?
Jesus'
right?
death on-
That's a
yeah,
stupid
I got you.
argument.
I got Jesus'
They
death
share the
on
same
cross
theology.
as
Yeah, they
forgiving-
share Christian theology, the same theology every
Yeah,
Christian has.
Is there any good reason to think he's not Pauline?
I think that Mark, Matthew,
Is there any
Luke,
good reason to think he's
John,
not Pauline?
and the rest of the New Testament all
I
have
think
the same
the
theology.
The category is an assumption
Okay,
that's
you're
not been
trying-
justified.
Okay, so we can agree that Mark 10, or Mark, just the author of Mark, that is, has Pauline theology, right? Mark believes.
No,
I
I'm not
agree
granting
that
that category.
I agree
Not
they
granting
share
that-
the same Christian theology. They
Okay.
have Christian
Christian
theology.
theology. Yes.
Does Mark contradict what the author of Philippians believed?
No.
Of course not.
Okay, beautiful. So when Jesus says, "Why do you call me good? Only God is good," what's your response to that?
So why do you call it's a rhetorical question, as I've said in the past in videos. I've used an analogy. So it's like if you have, for example, like let's say like we found out we were pregnant. My wife is pregnant, but we didn't want to tell anybody yet. And someone come up and asked me, "Hey, I heard you were gonna have a kid," and I didn't want to reveal yet because we haven't announced it. I'd be like, "Well, why would you assume I'm gonna have a kid? You can't have a kid unless someone gets pregnant." I'm doing that as sort of a rhetorical move to not lie, but also not give away the message.
Okay, so when you say it's rhetoric, what's the actual meaning behind it? What's he trying to get the men to believe?
He's trying to get him to think about what it is to actually be good.
Okay, so when he says, "Why do you call me good? Only God is good," who's God in that statement?
So that is, for example, up for debate among different scholars. But I mean, like,
can you share my screen here? If you don't mind?
If I said, "Why are you calling me a Christian?" Would that be me denying that I'm a Christian?
Yeah,
depends on the context.
Okay,
Exactly.
Yeah, here, I'll put your screen
Does
back
depend.
up.
So if you look here, okay, so it says the rich man calls him good teacher. Then Jesus says, "Why do you call me good? None is good except God alone." Who is God in that statement here?
So that depends. So
I'm asking your opinion. Who's God there?
Jesus is not given the context yet. This is what I mean. You're reading a lot into this right here because he's talking to a rich young ruler, someone who is probably not obviously not one of his followers in the text. And he's just asking him a rhetorical question. Like, so is he referring to the ontology of God or a specific person? He's not even specifying.
Right. So you're what you're saying is you're unsure, yeah?
We're saying Jesus does not specify.
Jesus doesn't specify who God is here, yeah?
He just talks about God.
Okay.
To use your term, generally.
What's the possibilities you can give me right now?
I said ontology or a specific person.
Or a specific person. So if here it was the Father, what would your interpretation be of that?
Jesus is just asking a question.
No, but there has to be some rhetorical force behind that question, right?
Yes, the simple question is this. He's like, hey. His simple question, his rhetorical force is this. Yeah. Hey, hey, we're both humans, right? Would you say that only God is good? Like, that's what he's trying to, and so that is not an admission of anything. That's just him trying to get the guy to think before he can move on to another point.
So do you remember when you brought on Mike Licona and he gave you two interpretations on Mark 10:18?
No, I've had so many streams. I do not remember that stream.
All good. So when you brought up Mark Licona, he gave two interpretations for this. He said, look, Jesus could be denying his goodness here, but he could also be equally saying that why do you call me that? Only God is that. In the context of, if you're calling me good, you're calling me God, right? Those are the two options he gave, right? Now,
again, I don't remember the stream, but I'll take your word for it for now.
No problem. So you can check it later. So let me see here. If you just share my screen. Okay.
You're going to go to the church father quotes?
Yeah. So my point is that he gave two options. Either it's rhetoric, and he's saying, if you're calling me good, you're calling me God, right? Or Michael Licona gave the other interpretation, which is, why do you call me good? He's denying being good here. Mike Lacona's interpretation, which is the rhetoric point, which I find more convincing than what you were saying about the whole goodness thing, that it doesn't possibly work anymore if God here is the Father. And we know that everyone within the earliest interpretations from the church fathers or the earliest citations of the church fathers, they saw God here as the Father, not the being or not God generally.
But all these church fathers believe that Jesus is God. So
not co-equal with the Father.
So
and that not co-equal with the Father.
And
that's the point you wanted to give. That's the point you were trying to give. So you're saying that
here's the problem. You're appealing to what they say about the meaning of this verse, but they don't see any conflict between this verse and their theology. And you're saying that but what they say about this verse contradicts your theology.
It's because they're subordinationists, that's why.
No, I disagree with that. But I mean, like, again, it's just a rhetorical question at the end of the day. Like, for example, if I would say, like, let's say, like, I'm talking to a foreigner. I'm trying to give you an analogy to try to help to see where we're coming from on this. And the foreigner was talking about, like, how the country is run. And he has decided, let's say he comes from, like, a place where they have a king. And he's like, yeah, the king does this. And, like, so your president has this kind of power and that kind of power. And I go, well, hold on a second. Or why would you think that? Does only the president have power to like sign something into law? Now I'm just asking a question at that point. I'm not actually saying that's true or not, because there's other ways in this country to pass a law. Like if you have I think it's like two-thirds or it's like 3/4 of Congress agrees, then you can pass a law without a presidential signature. So just asking a question like that is not revealing your in-depth, deepest theology when you're just trying to get somebody to think and walk them through an argument. This is why I think people read way too much into Mark 10:18.
Okay, so there's good reasons to think that that's just it's not a good probable reading given the context, because the first thing is Matthew.
Can I ask
the Matthean scribes?
Let him finish. Let him finish.
I just started my response. Yeah. So the first thing is that when the guy calls him good teacher, he goes on and he stops calling him good after Jesus says, "Why do you call me good?" So he actually understands from Jesus' statement as, "Don't call me that." Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is that the second thing is that Matthean. The second thing is
why would he repeat
within
the word
Matthew?
good?
Yeah, dude, like Mike, you just said I was going to finish.
Sorry.
Yeah. So within Matthew 19:17, what does Matthew render the question? Do you know, Mike?
I have to pull it up to remember. I do not remember off the top of my head as normal.
The Matthean scribes actually changed the text here to make it, "Why do you ask me about what is good?" This is a common theme from Matthean scribes, where when they have anxiety towards a text where it's contradicting their theology, they try and distort it. Similar with Matthew 24:36, where they try to omit "nor the Son" from the manuscripts. Okay, so
I mean, like, this doesn't change anything. So we're talking about Mark.
I'm showing you that early Christians found it so problematic they distorted Matthew.
I mean, that first of all, that's an assumption. Well, hold on. Let me just say that is an assumption. For example,
there's evidence.
There are many reasons for scribes to change things or to do things. We cannot assume that it's always anxiety. That's a logical leap. But again, we have moved from Q to Philippians to Mark, and now we're going to Matthew scribes. I mean, like, let's just go back. I mean, like, why are we jumping around?
I'm giving you justification that Mark didn't see Jesus as God, and I'm giving you early Matthean scribes distorting the passage. There's no good reason beyond.
So if I could show you,
go on.
One place, if I could show you someplace in Mark where Jesus is definitively set up as God, would that convince you?
Yeah, that would convince me that Mark has Jesus being God, of course.
Okay, but then you're going to say, well, that's not in Q, and I only care what's in Q anyway.
No, I never posited that. What?
Then why'd you bring up Q in the first place?
I'm granting you all of
your
Mark
whole
right
thing, right? Your
I'm
whole thing was that you're here to argue that Islam is true. Okay. We know you were just playing a game, right? You just really wanted to continue your previous discussion. But theoretically, what you were positing is that Islam is true because the theology of the earliest source, Q, agrees with Islam. That was your posit. That was your whole justification for bringing up this discussion.
The Quran gives us the earliest Christology,
Yeah. So let me ask you this question. You said, well, it could be read as subordinate. And we can disagree whether or not the fathers actually taught that. Is subordination consistent with Islamic theology?
No, and that's why I don't posit that these guys are Muslims.
Okay, then you go.
No,
so you went to this for no reason whatsoever because it teaches subordination according to you, and that's not consistent with Islam.
When you say that Jesus is Lord, Lord, and you say it's in the Septuagint, are you saying Jesus is claiming to be a subordinate God?
No,
I'm not making
No,
any claim
that's the
other than
point.
that. I'm not
That's the
making a
point.
claim. I'm not making a claim about what the
Go on, dude.
theology of this text is. I'm saying that your claim about what the theology of the text is
I'm saying your claim is
doesn't agree
anachronistic.
with your
claim
position.
is anachronistic.
Based
That's the
on
point.
nothing. You appeal to these
Your
later
claim is
sources. You've done this
anachronistic
again
because
and
when
again.
say
You call.
Jesus says-
You call.
Yeah, let me finish, dude. Are you let me finish? My claim is that
You
your-
didn't let me
my
finish.
claim
You
is that
interrupted
say,
me
Lord,
and then
Lord.
said, "Let me finish." Amazing.
I mean, dude, you're raising your voice, speaking over me. I can let you finish if you like. Go ahead.
Well, here's the thing. The whole time you keep bringing up later texts as claims about what this text means, and then saying our view of the text is anachronistic. So be consistent. Either you can appeal to later understanding of the text, or you can't. You can't just appeal to it only when it benefits you. That is not valid. And you've provided zero evidence whatsoever that any of this is consistent with Islam. Just every time we addressed, or not really we, it was all Mike, but every time he brought up a question about the text, how this is consistent with Islam, you ran somewhere else. You said, look, this other text, which is later than the text I'm appealing to, says something different. So therefore, they must have had different theology. And that's not a valid conclusion. That's not how you logically think about something. Just because they have different words doesn't mean they have different theology. I have seen no evidence from Q or anywhere else that the earliest Christians did not believe that Jesus was God in some sense. I'll grant you that subordination is a logical possibility, but that still contradicts Islam, as you just admitted to me. Right?
So you do grant they don't teach that Jesus is God. You can't substantiate that.
Wait, what? No.
What?
That's not what he said.
I didn't say that at all. I'm saying the minimal, at minimum.
Oh, at minimal. Okay,
Understand my
go
argument.
ahead, yeah.
At minimum, they are saying that Jesus is God in some sense.
Let's let Dean know.
And for your argument to work with Lord, Jesus would have to be identified with being co-equal as with the Father, because he will be Yahweh. And I'm telling you that isn't an anachronistic reading. That's why I gave you all of these early texts showing you this Christology is foreign. Now, my point is, dude, I just let him ramble for a long time.
Yeah, good.
So
ramble.
Here, so what we have is the earliest texts give us zero Christology that this Jesus was identified with Yahweh, co-equal with the Father. Zero. So your reading of Lord in Q is anachronistic. That's my claim. You use these earliest sources. You believe they have, obviously, some soundness to it. And I'm giving you these earliest sources to inform your understanding of what Lord means in this context. I don't mind it. Now, the earliest Christologies of Jesus are completely, there's a whole variety. Philippians has a higher Christology than what you find in Mark. Mark has a higher Christology than what you find in Q. Q doesn't give us Christology that's incompatible with Islam. I'm yet to see anything convincing for that. Now, when I give you texts such as, why do you call me good? Only God is good. These aren't much later even. These are giving us the earliest understanding in the first century that Jesus wasn't identified as God. If he's not identified as God, then he isn't being identified as Lord most likely in Q. That's my claim.
Questions.
Can you refute that?
Question.
Your claim
Yeah,
makes no sense.
So you talked about Philippians having a higher Christology than Mark. Does Mark have a higher Christology than what we see in Islam?
In parts, yeah.
Okay, so it's got a high Christology. Philippians has a high Christology. So by your own logic, the circumstantial evidence you've been trying to present is not presenting a view of Jesus that's compatible with Islam. Therefore, by your own reasoning, we should use that circumstantial evidence to read Q in that light and also agree it has a higher Christology than what is in Islam. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Okay, so the response to that is the earliest Christology you find in Q, you find within, for example, the Epistle of James, these Jewish Christian sources. As scholars like James Table points out, you have Q, you have James, the Epistle of James also being a Jewish Christian source. You have this stream of Jewish Christians where they have this low Christology, and the Quran is reviving that earliest Christology. So can you prove from? So can you prove from? Can you prove from Q or from James or from any source being a Jewish Christian source that we can derive this understanding?
Think about the logic. Q is the one in question. So Q is the one in question, and you're trying to help use. We're not arguing for proper exegesis of Q anymore. We're just using circumstantial evidence. So far, we've had Philippians. You've admitted has a higher Christology than Islam. There's just pre-Pauline. I guess you would agree Paul also has a higher Christology than what we have in Islam. So that's 2. Then you have Mark has a higher Christology than what is in Islam. So we have 3 sources right there that are helping us inform how to read Q. All are contradicting Islam. Now we're jumping away to James. We keep jumping to different books. Okay. So even if you're right, that's 1 versus 3 right there. And we should be reading a higher Christology in Q.
We're not doing a numbers game. Q is not Pauline in any sense. Where anywhere in Q does it have the Pauline theology that you find within Mark, Q, etc.? Show me.
Wait,
Hold on. There's a central point here. You keep letting him get away with saying that Q is the earliest. Scholars do not agree with that. They would say that Philippians, the pre-Christological,
I said it's the earliest gospel. Is Philippians a gospel?
It doesn't matter whether it's a gospel or not. The earliest Christian theology is found in Philippians. And you're saying the earliest Christian theology is captured in Q, which is consistent with Islam, but it's essential to your argument that it's earliest, and Philippians is the earliest. And you already admitted that Philippians has high Christology, so the earliest Christology, by your own admission, is high.
Coming through Paul, that Christology is high. But I don't believe that what Paul says represents what Jesus was saying. Do you have scholarly backing what Paul is saying matches with historical Jesus?
This is not the point, though. The point is about what Q is. The point is a Q.
Yeah,
you said Lord.
What Jesus is saying, yeah.
The point is in Q, which you admit says Lord, calls Jesus Lord, cannot mean Jesus is God, even though we've got no text from that time where anyone else has ever called it other than Yahweh. And your point was to look at circumstantial evidence, later texts, and say, well, no, they have a different Christology. But then you admitted those later texts have a higher Christology than Islam. So by your own logic, you said we should read Q in light of those other texts. We're doing that. And now we have to say Q contradicts Islam because the Christological context from these other texts, Mark, pre-Pauline, Paul as well, all are disagreeing with Islam.
Yeah. Q is coming from a different streamline of sources.
Then why did you appeal to those sources to begin with?
Because I'm showing you that no one has the idea that Jesus is Yahweh, dude. And you're saying Lord means he's Yahweh. You're falling to anachronism.
Except they do.
Who believes Jesus is Yahweh? Go ahead. Show me.
If you read the entirety of Mark believes it. If you read the entirety of Matthew believes it.
Go ahead. Where in Mark? Go ahead.
If you believe the entirety.
Show me.
You can go passage by passage. Jesus repeatedly claims things that are found only, or descriptions applied only to Yahweh.
Yeah, that's fallacious.
For example,
but go ahead. You give me an example. Go ahead.
Well, hold on a second. If you don't even know what my example is, how can it be fallacious?
Because you just set up the principle, which is only Yahweh does something, then Jesus does something. But go ahead.
Okay, fine. Let me rephrase it. If he uses language that's specifically applied to Yahweh in the Old Testament and not other figures.
What does that prove? That doesn't prove anything.
So I can just claim to be the first and the last, for example.
Is that a mark?
Doesn't mean anything.
I
didn't say it was a mark.
Okay, so how about you give an example of a mark and then we can discuss it. Go ahead.
Well,
I can go back to
No, because you've said that it's not a valid argument. So there's no point in giving an example if the argument in itself is not valid. So I have to first establish the argument's valid. So if I claim to be creator of the universe,
you have to establish
is that language that
you have to establish you mean it in the same sense. You have to establish that you mean it in the same sense, and it's not analogical.
So if I say that I'm the creator of the universe, that doesn't mean anything in your mind. And you can establish that I'm claiming to be God from that
If
statement.
the context, for example, first and last, that's something that's different to what you're saying now, because this, we know the usual.
I've changed it to creator.
The usual usage of the word. We don't have any context that I know of that someone's called the creator of the heavens and earth that it could mean otherwise. But for example, King of Kings. Someone might say King of Kings is a title that's only for God, and yet we have Nebuchadnezzar called the King of Kings in Daniel 2. Daniel's not saying that Nebuchadnezzar is God. So that's the example I'm giving you. So how about you give me an example from Mark that establishes your point? Go ahead.
Before we go to Mark, can I go to James first? Are you okay if I look at James?
Yeah, go on, yeah.
All right, I'm going to read for you James. Let's just read James chapter 5. Be patient, therefore, brothers, until the coming of the Lord. Who's he talking about in verse 7? Would you agree that's Jesus?
Yeah.
Okay. See how the farmer waits for the precious fruit of the earth, being patient about it until it receives the early and the late rains. You also be patient. Establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord is at hand. Do not grumble against one another, brothers, so that you may not be judged. Behold, the judge is standing at the door. Do you agree this is talking about Jesus?
Yeah, that's fine. Jesus is going to come back and judge. We believe this in Islam.
The prior chapter, there is only one law and only one lawgiver and judge, he who is able to save and destroy. But who are you to judge your neighbor? Do you think he's talking? So only
Here
one.
he's talking about the Father. Yeah. So what's happening here is
Whoa,
he's talking about the Father, and in the other context, he's talking about Jesus. The same way, he's calling only the Father judge, but you have in the Old Testament a book called the Book of Judges, or you have in Jesus talking about judging in the Gospels. Come on, dude, this is such a weak argument. Come on.
That is you're assuming univocality there. That James is going to use the word judge the same way the author of the Book of Judges is going to use. Here he's saying
or Jesus.
that
I mean, granted, where Jesus uses the term judge, even.
Okay, yeah. People use the term differently. I think, for example, Matthew uses the term proskuneo differently than Luke is going to use it. For example, that's one of my arguments I used to make the show. Luke is saying Jesus is God, but I mean, like, this is the point. He actually does seem to give a higher Christology than what you're going to find in Islam as well. So now we have four witnesses to help us influence
I'll give you no. I'll give you an example. I don't grant that at all. So within James, you have only one judge. I agree. In Islam, don't we believe there's one judge?
I do you because
I get different. There's only one judge,
Muslims.
which is God, right?
Okay,
so
fair.
We believe the only judge, ultimate judge, is God. Do we believe that Prophet Muhammad is a judge?
Do you?
Yeah, in the Quran it says they do not believe until they made you a judge over them.
Okay, interesting. That's
okay.
I'm going to think about that in terms of an odd issue for you, but okay. I mean, it's not helping you.
This guy.
How is that helping you?
You believe when the Quran says there's one judge and then it calls the Prophet a judge, that you don't believe that you're equivocating right now by thinking it's the same.
No, I'm saying that could very well be a contradiction if you look more into it. But I mean, like, this has nothing to do with my point about James.
This is being so uncharitable at this point. Let's be real. Let's be real. Come on.
No. You acknowledge that, and you acknowledge in James 5.
Here,
you acknowledge in James 5 that's Jesus who's the judge, but then you agreed that in chapter 4 that's God. So I mean, like,
the same way the Quran says Allah is the ultimate judge, but calls the Prophet a judge over everyone. Yeah. And then we have hadith saying that Jesus is going to come back as a just king to judge. Come on, this is a very weak argument. Come on.
But that's not James. James says there's only one judge.
Let's finalize this discussion because I think it's been going for like an hour. So,
I want to go to Mark 2 first. I want to do James and Mark. Okay.
Yeah, go on.
So my point is we have high Christology in those 4 works. Mark 2. I'll just say it flat out. He calls him Lord of the Sabbath. The only person in the Old Testament who's Lord of the Sabbath is Yahweh.
In Mark 2.
Mark 2.
Okay, so let's pull it up 1 second.
Oh, sorry. I forgot to put it on the screen. My mistake.
That's all good.
Yeah, I'll read the last part. On one Sabbath, he was going through the grain fields. As they made their way, his disciples began to pluck heads of grain. Excuse me. And the Pharisees were saying to him, "Look, what are they doing? What is not lawful on the Sabbath?" And he said to them, "Have you never read what David did when he was in need and was hungry, and those who were with him? How he entered the house of God in the time of Abiathar the high priest, and ate the bread of the presence, which is not lawful for any but the priest to eat, and also gave it to those who were with him. And he said to them, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath."
Yeah. So only God's called Lord of the Sabbath in the Old Testament, yeah?
Yes. The only person who's ever presented as Lord of the Sabbath is Yahweh.
Okay, beautiful. So this actually proves my point because I don't believe Jesus is talking about himself here. I believe that he's talking about general humanity. So let me make the point. So let me make the point.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, please.
Okay, beautiful. So for most scholars, when they read this, they actually say that. So do you okay, let me just bring this up and let me bring up Mark 2. Yeah, here we go. So when he says in the context that at the time of Abiathar, David came and there was an exception to the rule where he was able to be given the bread that was only meant to be for the priests, right? That consecrated bread that was given to David, Jesus' point is that the same way my disciples, they're eating grains and whatever, that the priest also allowed for the companions of David to do something exceptional. The point is that you can do something good on the Sabbath day. If you're hungry, you can do this, right? The same way you can heal on the Sabbath. Do you agree with that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. That's his point.
So okay, beautiful. So the context is that laws are made for humanity, not humanity for the laws. So then he said to them, the Sabbath was made for man. He's meaning humanity here, not humanity, man, for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man. So you're saying that's the reason why. So the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath. So the most likely reading is he's not saying Jesus himself is the Lord of the Sabbath. You made my point for me that humanity is called a title that only God has in the Old Testament.
Question for you. So Son of Man is referring to humanity?
Yes.
Well, let's go back to let's just read earlier then. Okay, so here we have here. Let's start in the earlier in the chapter. This is about him healing, okay? And so in Jesus, let's just start in verse 5. And Jesus saw their face, and he said to the paralytic, Son, your sins are forgiven. Now, some of the scribes were sitting there questioning in their hearts, why does this man speak like that? He is blaspheming. Who can forgive sins but God alone? And immediately Jesus, perceiving in his spirit that they were questioning within themselves, said to them, why do you question these things in your hearts? Which is easier, to say to the paralytic, your sins are forgiven, or to say, rise, take up your bed and walk? But that you may know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins. Here, Jesus forgave sins and then says he's the Son of Man, speaking of himself in third person.
I got you. So you're going to have to just give me a minute to speak, because this is a complicated topic now about what Son of Man really means. So you have, yeah, dude, you can laugh. Yeah, you can laugh like a little dog.
It's very complicated when you have to reinterpret it instead of just going with what the text says.
Everyone knows there's the Son of Man problem in the Gospels. If you're ignorant on that, that's on you, bro. So the Son of Man is
the Son of Man
different.
problem. I don't have any problem with it.
Oh my
it's
God.
Jesus'
Yeah,
title
dude,
for
can
himself.
you like show you
And
what
he's referring to
That is,
Daniel.
Dude, I'm
Let's
speaking to
let him
Mike.
do
I'm
it.
speaking to Mike.
Let's let him do it. Let's just let him do his thing. It'll be. Please do it in a way that's not going to make the interpretation of the text ad hoc.
I got you. So the point is that Son of Man is used in different ways in the Gospels. It is either used in a way meaning the suffering Son of Man, or it's used in the sense of the Danielic Son of Man, right? And then you also have Son of Man as meaning humanity. Now, Son of Man meaning humanity is the way it's being used within Mark 2:28. You can make a good case, I'll grant you it. Mark 2:13, there's a good case that's talking about the Danielic Son of Man who's given authority by God in Daniel 7. I grant you that. But the point is that the context for Mark 2:28 gives the impression, like you said, you don't want ad hoc interpretations. The impression is, the whole context is, humanity is not made for the laws. The laws are made for humanity. Therefore, the Son of Man is general humanity. This is pretty much a standard position in scholarly circles. That Son of Man here means humanity. Do you not agree with that?
Can you show me a place in Mark where Son of Man means humanity?
Right there, the context right there.
No. That's the one in question. You need to show me.
Yeah,
a place where
I gave you the
explicitly
context
shows
to
that.
justify it. I gave you the context.
No,
Review the context.
I don't agree with that, because he's talking about himself. That's the way Jesus always uses this phrase. He's always calling himself the Son of Man, talking about in third person. Why would the term shift in the very chapter just a few verses
because
later?
of the because the context shows you man was made for the Sabbath, not Sabbath for man. Therefore, the Greek there actually means therefore. That's like making the point. So
in your view, then,
the Son of
your view,
go ahead.
In your view, question then. So humans are Lord over the Sabbath.
Yes, that's the point.
Where in the Bible does it say that? Because it's very clear
Right.
that Yahweh is Lord of the Sabbath in Exodus.
Okay, how in the context at all? If you just bring up Mark 2 again, so we can have a look at it.
Okay. Yeah, I'll pull it back up.
Let's keep it there.
So real quick, so you agree, Son of Man in this in
Son
the
of Man
first
in
verse-
Mark is used in multiple senses. I just told you.
Okay. Can you show me a place where it shifts meaning anywhere in this chapter?
Dude, the context of Mark 2 shows you it's obviously talking about humanity. So the context is about, that's why I told you the context beforehand. David's companions were able to eat from the bread because of the fact that the laws don't take importance over humanity. Humanity's needs takes importance over the laws. That's the point. That's why he says it's justified for the disciples to take from the grain. It's justified for the disciples to take from the grain because the laws are made for them, not them for the laws. That's the point.
And so
Son of Man
Jesus-
means humanity.
But Jesus says, so the Son of Man is even Lord of the Sabbath. Therefore, he gets to decide what the Sabbath, what the rules and regulations are of
humanity
the Sabbath.
gets to decide. Yeah, that's right.
No, he gets to decide. That's the point. The point is not
Yeah,
right there. The Pharisees are saying,
But the
hey,
context
you
is
can't
talking
do this
about
on the
humanity, not
Sabbath.
himself.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's talking about him and humanity. Let me explain to you what's going on in this passage. So the Pharisees are saying, you can't do this. That's on the Sabbath. And he's going, whoa, you don't understand the rules of the Sabbath. Okay. The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. I am Lord of the Sabbath. I get to decide what the
He
rules
doesn't say
are.
I'm Lord of the Sabbath. You're adding it to the text. Read from the
I'm
text.
paraphrasing is my point.
Read from the text, please. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the Son of Man is even Lord of the Sabbath.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's humanity. You can't refute that from the context.
Yes, I just did. I showed you the prior context of where it was used earlier in Mark to explicitly refer to Jesus, and in this he's doing something.
And
similar.
by the way, Mark 2 can be taken as humanity. By the way,
can you show me?
And Mark 2 that could be taken as humanity as well. By the way, so
humanity can forgive sins.
Yeah, don't the disciples forgive sins?
They forgive in Jesus' name. This is when I brought on. I believe it was actually like Kona. He pointed this.
So the point is that humans can be given authority to forgive sins.
I want to correct myself. I was Daryl Bach when I brought on Daryl Bach over I think it was in May. He pointed this out. It's only through the power of Jesus. It's only on his behalf. Is what he.
Okay, no problem. He's given them the Holy Spirit, and they're able to forgive sins. That's the point. The point is they're able to forgive sins. So humanity can be given authority to forgive sins in some sense, whether it's in the name of Jesus or whatever. That's besides the point. The point is
that was not my point about this passage. My point was that the Son of Man is referring to Jesus.
I got you, bro. If you pull up Matthew 9:8, that's the parallel passage. Pull up that.
Okay.
That'll show you that you can take Mark 2 as meaning humanity there. So Matthew 9:8, where does it say there? So this is the parallel passage for the Son of Man authority.
Yeah, the authority.
When the crowd saw it, they were afraid, and they glorified God who had given such authority to men. So that's men in the plural, correct?
You're misunderstanding my point, though. My point was not to use. Yes, but you're misunderstanding my point in trying to make
Son of Man, there's humanity.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. Okay, my point is that Son of Man is always referring to Jesus. There's no place it ever refers to humanity. The crowds are saying, look, the only person who has authority in this passage to forgive sins is Jesus. Okay.
Okay. So is Jesus one man or multiple men?
He is man. So
why did they say
Matthew? Them using just because they're just using standard phraseology. Jesus was a man. He was forgiving sins. Holy crap! Men have authority to forgive sins, and it's just referring to. It's just giving an overview of the passage.
And the Gospels present that multiple men can forgive sins, correct?
Through Jesus, as Daryl Bach pointed out when he's on my channel.
Whatever it is, the point is that you can extend this to humanity. Whatever you want to say, it's in the name of Jesus or Holy Spirit or whatever.
I'm with you on that. Okay. That's not my point. My point is that any time in the Gospels the Son of Man is brought up, there's never a time where you can definitively say, yeah, this is not referring to Jesus. The overwhelming majority of scholars say in the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, when Jesus is talking about the Son of Man, he's talking about himself. Overwhelming majority.
Yeah. So they don't say that in Mark 2 at the end, that's humanity?
That definitely does not say that.
They don't?
Humanity.
Okay. Give me one scholar. Go ahead.
Who says this is Jesus?
Yeah, this isn't talking about humanity. It's talking about Jesus.
Daryl Bach, Robert Bowman Jr., Ed Komaszewski.
Yeah. I'll give you. Okay, no problem. I'll give you here from Mark 2:28. 1 second. Just pull this up here. Okay, here we go. So if you go to the search for the authentic words of Jesus, the 5 Gospels, what did Jesus really say? You familiar with that book?
No, I've not read it.
Okay, no problem. So in page 77. So
wait,
they try to. It's a whole seminar of scholars.
It's a Jesus seminars. Work.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I said really. That's what you're going to.
If you go to page 77, they actually commented on what Son of Man is. Okay, so it says the Jewish scriptures portray the human being as the agent to exercise control over every living creature. The ideal decisively shaped Jewish visions at the end of history. And then it brings up the Son of Man from Daniel 7. The phrase Son of Man is employed in 3 different senses in the Gospels. 1, to refer to the heavenly figure to who is to come. 2, to refer to the one who's to suffer and to die. 3, to refer to human beings. Okay, so then they go on to say for the third one, where it's referring to human beings, they say, 2 sayings highlight the authority of the son of Adam on earth. In one instance, to forgive sins in Mark 2:10. In a second, to lord it over the Sabbath in Mark 2:28. These sayings appear to conform in the first 2 senses drawn from the Hebrew Bible mentioned earlier. Okay, so we have here from the Jesus seminar, they're saying there's these different usages, and they were agreeing that Mark 2, within both passages in Mark 2, Son of Man here is being used as in humanity.
Yeah, I don't see that at all that's why I was trying to do a proper exegesis of the text. We don't see that. And just saying that's what they say, that does not make that magically the case.
I already showed you the context to support that. In Mark
we disagreed on that context supporting that. Now, here's my simple question. Is this presentation of Mark presenting Jesus in this way, does that contradict Islam?
In the way that he's Lord over the Sabbath?
Lord over the Sabbath, able to read hearts, able to forgive sins.
That's fine. That's fine. Being able to, okay. We're going to deal with that one by one. First of all, with Lord, because each of these require exegesis. So if you're talking about Lord over the Sabbath, yeah, he's able to determine as a prophet when something is prohibited or not prohibited. Same way that a human being can also have that sort of ability to look at a situation and try to decipher what is okay at certain situations, what is not. That's totally fine. Lord being a Lord of the Sabbath in that sense, that's fine. If you're talking about reading human hearts, do you believe that that's only property given to God alone?
We only see in the Old Testament that God can read hearts.
Okay, you just made my point for me again. When God is given one property that's due to only him alone, or one title that's given to him alone, right? You're making the assumption, therefore, the person has to be God if they're also given that. Are you familiar with the Psalms of Solomon?
Yeah, a while back. I've not read them any time recently. It's not like I have them in front of me or anything. But
and you didn't mishear. You read the Psalms of Solomon, Psalms.
Yeah, not the Psalms that are in the Bible. Yeah, I think this is Apocrypha, if I remember correctly.
Okay, yeah, no problem. So let me bring this up. Okay, 1 second. So in the Psalms of Solomon,
not in the Bible.
Yeah, it's not in the Bible, but it gives us an understanding that people, Jewish, a Jewish group at the time that wrote it and accepted it, and they were circulating. They give us an understanding of
Christians.
Yeah, they give us an understanding of the milieu at the time. Okay, so let me.
I mean, I'm not gonna. This is gonna be irrelevant because I'm not gonna believe that every Jewish text from the time is gonna be agreement with what the Bible teaches.
No. I'm not making that point. Yeah, I'm not making that point. So let me just bring this up here. Okay, there we go. So just share my screen if you don't mind.
All right.
Okay. Psalms of Solomon 17. A Psalm of Solomon with song concerning the king. So as you said, it's apocryphal. It dates to the 1st century BC, most likely written by some Pharisees. So they actually talk about the Messiah, and they say the Messiah will condemn sinners by the thoughts of their own hearts, which shows that early Jews already before Jesus' time believed other than God could read hearts.
Good for them. Does the Bible present that?
So your argument doesn't work. They read the Bible, didn't they?
Yeah, they got it wrong. That's the point. The Pharisees got the Bible wrong all the time. Yes, all the time.
Okay, so perfect. We have Jews already coming before Jesus' time that believed when God says some stuff about himself, it doesn't have to be only for himself, because they also ascribe it to the Messiah, which they didn't believe was God. So
they can be heretics.
In the same, So in the same way, we're going to use that in light of what Mark 2 says. Jesus fulfilling messianic expectation from the Jews at the time that he will condemn people by their hearts, not messianic expectations that Jesus was meant to be God. Now, that's compatible with Islam, because you asked me a question. That's compatible with Islam as well, because a prophet can be given the ability to read hearts of men. No problem. That's just a prophetic knowledge. The last point you said was on forgiving sins, right?
Mm-hmm. Forgiving sins, being Lord of the Sabbath, and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So the forgiving, I already established the Lord of the Sabbath and other stuff. So with the forgiving sins, God is the ultimate forgiver of sins. Jesus can be given the authority to pronounce forgiveness of sins on earth. That's compatible.
So he's given authority. So here's a simple question then. Because this is all about going back to Q. That so with Mark, is there anything in Mark that you think presents a high? But you said earlier when we were talking about Philippians and Mark, it has a higher Christology than Islam, though, right?
Yeah, in parts, Mark has a higher Christology.
There we go.
So does Philippians. Yeah.
Okay, because all of this was just trying to get you back to this main point here. I kept doing that, taking you through the weeds on purpose to get you back to this point. Your original point was we cannot say Lord, Lord in Q means God, because there's so many other sources around that have a different Christology, but all those Christologies around still contradict Islam. So by your own logic, the Christology of Q should also contradict Islam.
No. That was you're misrepresenting my point. My point is that for Jesus to be Lord, Lord, he has to be Yahweh, correct? That's your point.
My point is that is the simplest and most parsimonious understanding.
Okay, beautiful. And my point is that that's an anachronistic reading of how these authors in the 1st century were depicting Jesus. It's anachronistic. So does your argument work with Jesus being Lord, Lord in a subordinate sense? It doesn't. You have to have him be Yahweh. right? And that's my point.
No, here's
You
the
realize
problem,
that
though.
Jesus is Yahweh in subordination, right?
Here's your problem, though, with that. Okay, you have not presented anything from the text. You just said we need to look circumstantially around to understand the theology of Q. We did that. We went through James, we went through Philippians, and Paul by extension, and now Mark, and you're all agreeing this Christology that you think is going to help support you, the earliest Christology, is still contradicting Islam.
No, you misrepresented me because I never said James contradicts Islam. Mark contradicts Islam on its Christology minimally. They're like in Mark 14, where he says to be the Son of Man that comes with the clouds of heaven, etc., and they take it to be blasphemy. That highly exalted figure. That's fine. But the point is that minimal stuff within Mark contradicts Islam. Pauline texts contradict Islam on the Christology. I can grant that. They had high Christology early on. No problem. But the Jewish Christian sources that we have, being those that James Tabor mentions, he says himself they're compatible with Islam. This is how Islam depicts Jesus.
Oh, question.
You got Q. One second. Just let me finish my point.
Okay.
Q, Didache, and James, they all depict Jesus in a fashion where that's compatible with Islam and its Christology.
No, they don't.
There's nothing in there that contradicts Islamic Christology.
Yeah, Michael Bird points out in the Didache, they change the liturgical formula, Hosanna to the Son of David to Hosanna to the God of David. So they take that saying about Jesus and they change it. Hosanna to the Son of David, Hosanna to the God of David. So that is a very high Christology, as Michael Bird points out in his book, Jesus Among the Gods. But I mean, like, here's my question I wanted to
God
ask
in the Old
you.
Testament. Dude, that doesn't change anything. Because
Elohim, it's different. That's a Hebrew word, doesn't mean the same thing.
Because you're equivocating. Okay, Elohim, how's it translated into the Septuagint?
It's often translated as, I believe, Theos.
Theos. Okay, so Theos is used within the Didache, is it not?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, so that's the point. Exodus 7:1. You have Theos.
That's assuming univocality univocality.
So do you have high Christology with Moses?
No, we don't say that. But again, let me go back to my point, though. Do you think, for example, Mark and Paul, they contradict each other in some ways? Because you said they have different Christologies, right?
Mark has a lower Christology than Paul, yeah.
So they contradict each other in ways. So then why can you appeal to them to help understand how the author of Q wrote when he wrote Jesus saying Lord, Lord, as evidence that he didn't believe? Because you now admit these guys had
because
different
no one in the first century
Christologies
believed
that
Jesus was God.
Hold on, let me finish. They had different Christologies according to you, but you said earlier we need to look to them to understand how this saying in Q happens. But by your own logic, they all contradict each other, so we shouldn't be using them at all. We should just be going on what Q says, or at least the reconstruction of it, which I don't think is valid in a lot of ways.
So I'm not saying we use Paul as our interpretive lens of what Q is saying. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that even the highest Christologies you can bring up from the early church, even those Christologies, they don't meet the requirements you need for Lord, Lord to mean Yahweh. Paul, Mark, Matthew, Luke, John, any of them. None of them meet the Christology that's needed for Lord, Lord to mean Yahweh. That's my point. I'm not saying that you use them as interpretive lenses for Q. Of course not.
Then set them aside. Let's just go on that. Because again,
no, because no one in the first century believed Jesus is God. So why would I grant that Lord, Lord here means God?
Because that is evidence
you're
that
saying
someone
you
did.
Can't use them. You're literally saying you can't use them as an interpretive lens while using them as an interpretive lens. And that's not even correct. While using your interpretation of those passages as an interpretive lens.
Yeah, I got you. So we're saying is the milieu at the time, it's foreign for them to believe that Jesus is God. No one teaches that.
But we don't agree with that. We
Mark
think that these texts are teaching
Mark,
that Jesus
Matthew,
is God.
Luke, John, none of them teach that. So there's no
Matthew,
reason
Mark,
for
Luke,
me
and
to
John
think
do teach that.
Okay, so can you give me a clear verse that teaches that he's God there? Go ahead.
Lord, Lord. We've given you that over and over again.
That's what's in question, dude.
That.
Where's the Christology that Jesus is God within Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John? Where is that?
Listen, we're talking about Q. That's what we're talking about, Q. But again, show me a text from that time where anyone else is
Can you repeat my point for me? Mike, can you repeat my point for me? Why am I trying to get Christologies?
Because you're trying to say that no one in the first century thought Jesus was Yahweh.
Yes. So why would we assume Q is presenting Jesus as Yahweh?
Because you agreed that there's different Christologies, so we could just follow you down that path and say Q had a higher Christology in line with the Didache, where they called him God.
So you believe it's likely that Q is presenting Jesus, given you're granting what I just said right now. There's a foreign Christology in the first century of Jesus being God, as in co-equal with the Father.
Okay,
as
I
being
want
Yahweh.
to say this.
Given as you grant that, You're saying that
He's
it's
not
still
granting that.
likely. You're saying that it's still likely that Q is representing Jesus as Yahweh, but it's just because it has a different Christology. Is that what you're saying?
I want to say this so I'm not cut out or taken out of context. If you're right in your interpretations, and we thoroughly disagree with how you're interpreting Mark, Luke, Matthew, all of them, if you're right, you already said that there are different Christologies. So this would just be another Christology that became the dominant one if you were right about those things. And you have to acknowledge that that did become the dominant Christology.
So do you believe that that hypothesis is likely or unlikely?
Which your hypothesis?
The one you just said right now, that you could just say Q has a different Christology amongst these other Christologies that are subordinate, but Q just represents Jesus as God. Do you think that's likely or unlikely? Or just possible? Do you think it's just possible or is it probable?
I'm just going to say possible because there's so many assumptions you've just put in there that I'm not granting.
Okay, so that's not a good case then. You're just saying mere possibility. I think we've
no. That's not what I said at all.
You've
taken me out of
what is your actual position, IP? Because he's trying to make you affirm a position that's not remotely yours. What's your actual position?
He took me wildly out of context. I mean, that's why I said that earlier. Like, I'm going to say this because I don't want to get taken out of context. And then you just did that, man. Okay, my position is that the earliest is in line with people like Michael Patrick Barber or Michael Bird, that the earliest Christology is a very high one, like what you see in the Didache where Jesus is called God, or what you see in what you think Q was, where he's called Lord, Lord, which is, again, a term only used for Yahweh. That means those early authors thought Jesus was God.
Yeah, so actually, that position is not what you presented before. You were presenting before, listen, I'll grant you it. Early Christology was subordinate, but we're just going to say that Q... That's what you just said, dude. What?
No, he literally did not say that.
You can replay it, but that's fine, whatever. So
the point
bro,
you're taking me out of context.
No
in
problem.
So many ways.
No
Notice
problem.
I said earlier, if you're right, that's what I was talking about.
Point,
if you're right,
I'm responding to that hypothetical, dude. Are you okay?
I'm just making sure
you're responding to the hypothetical that you're right.
Yeah, because he's saying given that you're right, we can still explain it this way. And I'm saying, no, you still can't explain it that way.
Why so? Why can't we say that the author of Q...
Dude, and then, okay, I just told you, and then you just went on saying, that's not my actual position. Okay, let's bring it back. So repeat one more time so everyone understands what you're saying. In response to me saying that there's these subordinate Christologies, no one believed Jesus is God in the first century, what was your response to that? And then with Q, go ahead.
Okay, even if you're right that Mark and Philippians, the pre-Pauline in Philippians has a subordinationist in some sense, you could still make the case there was just contradictory Christologies, which you said existed there, and then Q would just be a divergent view on your view.
And here you're positing that Q would be a divergent view where Jesus is Yahweh. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Now I'm asking you, like I asked you before, is that hypothesis you're giving right now, is that likely or merely possible?
Likely and how?
Oh my God!
Because I would say it's likely the author of Q is
saying Jesus
is
I think what
Yahweh.
Dean wants to say is, in the Bayesian, what is the Bayesian probability that given the first thing is correct, it's 100%, then what would the likelihood be?
It'd be very high because, again, thank you, appreciate that, yes. Because so again, it would still be very high because, again, based on Staples' argument, we don't have anyone else ever claiming to be Lord, Lord other than Jesus and Yahweh.
Okay, dude, that is like just to make it clear for everyone why I believe that's unlikely. We have all these Christologies that are circulating. Yeah, Pauline epistles, you got the Gospels, you got apocryphal texts, etc. None of them depict Jesus as Yahweh, but Mike is saying to me now that even if I grant you that, Q could just be representing Jesus as Yahweh with the Lord, Lord phrasing, because only God has it in the Old Testament. But that is very unlikely considering Q would have to giving us a forward Christology that we don't see in any given text, right? And he's still saying that's likely, right? Which would just mean that if you're really saying that that's still likely, then I could say that there's a Christology out there that matches with Islam, right? And that's likely given the fact that Q, with my interpretation, it's out there and it's likely given that my interpretation of Q is correct. Would you say that that's fine to say?
No, because you have to include Lord in your reconstruction of Q.
Okay,
and then
but if I
that would
do address,
contradict it.
but if on the condition that I do address the Lord, and I show from the earliest manuscripts it's an evolution, given that I do show that, then the Islamic Christology is likely to show from Q.
No, and here's the reason: is because you can show textual evolution in some texts, while there is different Christologies in other texts. So just because there may have been evolution in one group, that does not mean it's going to happen in another group.
Yeah, but your point was predicated on the idea that there's different Christologies, and you said that Q could just be one of the other Christologies, right? Now, Q saying Lord, I gave you one example before, but I'll give you another example now to address your argument, to show you that even the Q Christology, we can't say that it's saying this Yahweh. If it's true that Son of Man in Mark 2:28 is humanity, that would mean that there's a title of Yahweh alone in the Old Testament that's assigned to other than Yahweh, correct?
What I mean, it's an odd thing to say. I mean, if you could prove that and you haven't, then yeah, that'd be very weird to be giving a title of Yahweh to humanity, which I think is making the point for me. But go on.
Yeah, but the point is that the majority of scholarship already agree with me, given the context I gave you, that's talking about humanity. So that actually addresses the Lord argument, because we can show contextually humanity is called a title that only Yahweh has in the Old Testament.
So you believe that is a title only of God.
Yeah.
And it's being used in Mark 2.
Yep.
And you think that's referring to? I mean, this works against you. It seems very
No, it doesn't.
unlikely.
Because it's used in a way. Do you know what analogical predication is?
Yeah, go on, continue.
Okay, so it's using analogical language here, where the humanity is Lord over the Sabbath, but not in the same way as the Father in the Old Testament. So that's just going to be the same thing here. When Jesus is called Lord, that's used in an analogical way, not an equivocal way, where it means the same thing in the Old Testament.
Do you remember what I said earlier about not being ad hoc? This is ad hoc, is now you're positing that for some reason there were these Jews who wrote Mark and they wanted to take this. It's much simpler. It's much more parsimonious to say they're just using the title in that to refer to Jesus because he is Lord.
Why is it unlikely?
Because you're positing additional layers. So you got to posit a layer. So the authors of Mark, let's say the author of Mark was a Jew. He has this belief, an additional belief we have no evidence for, that he wanted to take these sayings and reinterpret them for humanity. That instead of him just taking those sayings, which are clearly about God, and then clearly applying them to Jesus, that's a more parsimonious explanation of the text than these additional layers you have to posit to save Islam.
No, it's not, because, okay, to be quite frank, your response to Mark 10:18 was ad hoc. Mark 13:32, your interpretation's ad hoc and heretical, by the way, for most Christians. All these interpretations you give for these passages where clearly Mark's not intending Jesus to be God is way more ad hoc than what I'm saying right now.
You're just diverging away from the actual topic here to try to change.
Because you're telling me it's not parsimonious given the whole context, and I'm telling you, given the whole context,
even if you're right,
you pause it.
Right, it doesn't matter because yours is still ad hoc in this sense.
Yeah, Mike, let me finish 10 seconds. My point is that given Mark holistically, he doesn't believe Jesus is God. I show that with Mark 10:18. I can show that with Mark 13:32. And your arguments for him being God is always based on assumptions like only God does X, Jesus does X, therefore Jesus is God. Only God is called X, Jesus called X, therefore Jesus is God. That requires a lot more assumptions than dealing with the concepts at hand. Jesus having less knowledge, Jesus having less goodness. That is the concepts we should be dealing with, not titles and word concepts.
No, I'm going to completely disagree with you there because, again, Jesus never says, I'm not good. Again, you want to talk about being ad hoc. That's very ad hoc for Mark 10:18 because he doesn't actually say that. He asks a rhetorical question, again, as we pointed out.
Doesn't Mike Licona give it as a possible response?
You're talking to me right now, not Mike Licona. Are you going to actually
you agreed with something I'm saying? Dude, you literally were like, didn't give
It's not a question of possibility. It's a question of probability.
Yeah, and the point is, given probability, why do you call me good? Only God is good. God there was always interpreted as the Father. We can actually make a good case that it was cited as Father early on, and that was the earliest version. Regardless, if Jesus is saying, why do you call me that? Only the Father is that. On the apparent, no assumptions, he's saying, why do you call me that? As in, don't call me that.
Yeah, that's not at all what he says. You're really reading into that, and that's my point.
Okay,
I can use rhetorical questions all the time, and we never jump to that conclusion.
Okay, no problem. No problem. Mark's Christology, if you're gonna give that response for Mark 10:18, we're gonna go back and forth on that. Another major point that I believe shows that Mark doesn't have a high Christology, he has a lower Christology. Jesus says he doesn't know the hour. What's your interpretation of that?
No, we're not going to keep jumping around. We jumped around to
because
so
it's
many
ad
things
hoc.
here.
All you guys' interpretations of the text are ad hoc.
I want to get back to
isn't.
Q. I want to get back to Q
You
here
keep
again.
jumping everywhere.
That's the
He wants
point.
to keep you on the
No, we're not
subject.
jumping
That's it.
everywhere.
Yeah,
You
I
brought
wanna
up
stay on
Mark
the
2.
subject, for the love of God.
No,
Didn't
you
you
brought
bring
up
up Mark
Mark.
2?
You brought up Mark too.
Mark 2:28.
You
Mark
brought up
2:16.
Mark too.
Because you brought up
hey,
Mark.
stop lying. Stop lying. You brought it up.
No, he brought up
Don't
Mark 2
say
first.
IP brought it up to justify.
Yeah, he brought it up
You
first,
brought it
actually.
up to so-called prove
No,
that
he brought it up
everyone didn't
first.
believe that Jesus was God at that time.
Okay, we can replay it. We can see who brought it up first. You brought up Mark 2 first to say Jesus says he's the Lord of the Sabbath. Did you not do that, Mark?
That was
you're
well
misunderstanding.
after.
Yes, you're misunderstanding. You brought up Mark and to say Jesus isn't God, and I brought up Mark 2 to say that Jesus is God.
And then I'm bringing Mark 13:32 to show he's not God, and you're not engaging.
Anyway, back to the point about Q though, because
Are you
again,
going to
this is
engage with
all
Mark
about the
13
wo-
or not?
This is all about Lord, and you're trying to get away from that for some weird reason.
Yeah,
you want to
and
go
I'm
to other
giving you-
places. Again, I have already granted that if you're right, this has nothing to do with Q. If you're right about Mark's Christology, this has nothing to do with Q, which calls Jesus God through Lord. Just like the Didache calls Jesus God by calling him God when they change the liturgical formula from Hosanna to the Son of David to Hosanna to the God of David. So we can use that right there. So this doesn't help you at all because you could still argue the author of Q had a much higher Christology.
No, you can't. And the point is, I'm establishing to you that Mark doesn't believe Jesus is Yahweh. Matthew doesn't believe Jesus is Yahweh, but you're not engaging with the fact that they say Jesus doesn't know the hour. Can you engage? Matthew 24:36.
Who is the first person who says,
the same text?
Dean, we have let you jump from passage to passage. I'm trying to get to the main
you're bringing
subject.
passage and passages. You're bringing.
I'm
passages too.
trying to stick to the main. Who do you say is the first person to say Jesus is Yahweh? What's the first text then?
It's gonna come in and around Nicaea, around that time.
So no one before said Jesus was Yahweh.
In the same sense as the Father, co-equal. No.
But that's not what I'm asking. Jesus is Yahweh. Some people did say that before, even though they thought it was like a subordinate version, like in a sense, I guess. He was
What
Yahweh
do you
in
mean
a
by
sense.
yeah, you're gonna have to explain what you mean by that because now you're saying in a sense.
Well, I'm trying to figure out what you mean because you said in Nicaea, but were there people saying Jesus was Yahweh?
So I'm talking about Jesus being Yahweh, as in Jesus being Lord, as in Jesus being the God of the Old Testament. No one believed that until around Nicaea.
So okay, so even if you're right about that, we could just use that context to just then read the earlier texts because you're saying we should use Mark and James to then like say, well, it wasn't there. But I could just say, okay, well, actually, no, there were other people who said it later, and they got it from these earlier texts. So
Where's
that's where they're
evidence for
getting
that?
it from.
Yeah, so then I could just give a good argument from silence and say we would expect these earliest texts to show us that we don't have it. So it's an evolution rather than them taking from earlier traditions.
So but here's the problem, though. You just brought up silence. That you're doing the same thing when it comes to
Yeah,
Q. You have
it's
no
a good
one who
argument
said.
from it's a
You
good
have no
argument
one
from silence.
around.
Can you
you have no one in
show
Q.
Can you show anyone before Nicaea that held to Jesus being Yahweh in the same sense as the Father?
Yes, like
Who?
Gregory the Wonder Worker, Irenaeus, Justin Martyr.
Okay. Let's bring. Okay. By the way, Gregory's writings.
We're not.
Okay, here.
We're not going to
Let's
go
stick on
through
one.
these. We're not going to go through
Let's
these.
stick on
We're not.
one. Let's
No,
stick on-
we're not. We're not.
So
As I
what's the
said,
point
we're
of listening
done
then if
jumping.
you're not going to engage? What?
Because I'm trying to get you back to Q. That's what I want to talk about. You keep running from Q.
So why would you bring
on
this up
Q?
then?
Because
Yeah.
you keep running from Q, and I keep trying to bring you back
And
around.
you're-
Is the
and
point?
you're bringing up church fathers after Q.
So then, on Q, is there anything within Q that would make you suggest Lord does not mean God? If we're just going to stick with Q.
There's nothing in there that makes me think that it's saying that Jesus is God.
So what is the context in Q that shows Lord does not mean God?
No, I'm saying there's nothing within Q that gives me a high Christology. That's my point.
The Lord,
So there's,
but
so there's nothing that makes me think that Lord has a high Christology.
not the fact.
So
that,
if you
like,
remove
there's
all
no
the parts,
text.
if you remove
Not
all
the fact that what,
parts
sorry?
that does, then nothing does. Got it.
Yeah, it sounds circular
okay,
because you're saying
It's not
there's no
circular.
evidence. You're saying there's nothing, but I mean, that in itself is strong evidence because again, as Michael Patrick Barber, Jason Staples have pointed out, No one was called that other than Yahweh. And here Jesus is calling himself
and
that.
no one's called Lord of the Sabbath except for Yahweh. And I believe humanity are called Lord of the Sabbath. It's that easy.
That is so speculative, and it's not as explicit as what it is in Q when he just says Lord, Lord. That's clearly a title.
And by the way, this whole argument of titles isn't dealing with concepts. It's very weak. I don't find it convincing.
Wait, so people could just have titles that are explicitly the name Yahweh?
Just the title itself doesn't tell us much. When Jesus is called King of Kings, it doesn't tell us much until we know the context. Similar with Nebuchadnezzar when he's called the King of Kings. It's analogical language. So the same way,
you know why you're right.
The same way when Jesus called Lord, Lord. Let me establish it. When Jesus called Lord, Lord, I could just say it's analogical language again. What's the issue?
You know what? You know why you're right? It's because we have examples where other people are called King of Kings. We don't have any other examples of anyone being called Lord, Lord except Yahweh and Jesus. So that doesn't apply there.
Okay, but you see how, Mike, you see how, even if I didn't have an example where someone else is called Lord of the Sabbath, I could still think that Jesus being called Lord of the Sabbath doesn't mean he's God, because there's a possibility someone is called it. That's one. Or two, maybe no one else was called it, and it just so happens to be only God is called that. Why is that so implausible?
So you're arguing from possibility.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Everything we've been discussing is possibility, probably.
It's all literally everything. Anything you could possibly say is a logical possibility.
It's just possible.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we're arguing from possibility and probability. You have to try and increase the possibility to make it likely.
Okay, what increases it? And we've gone through all these texts, looked at circumstantial evidence.
So when I'm reading Q, for Lord to work, Lord would have to mean Jesus is Yahweh. He is God, right? And I'm telling you that Christology is anachronistic. You haven't established why it's not anachronistic.
Again,
because you deny everything. So every time something's brought, you deny it.
This is weak. That's why.
You can say that, but that isn't an argument. Saying your evidence doesn't count is not an
Matthew
argument.
24:36. Are you going to engage with Jesus not knowing the hour?
No, because you've jumped to 20 texts already.
So you
we don't need to jump to a 21st.
You guys say, they're saying he's God, but you're not engaging with the verses where he's not called, where he's so clearly not God.
Because it's irrelevant. Because you said that these authors have different Christology. So even if you can establish that's what Matthew is teaching, that doesn't show us what Q is teaching. That goes back to one of the very first things I said to you when you started bringing up Q.
My point is that the milieu, no one thinks he's God. So obviously we're going to find in Q
and we disagree
that Jesus isn't God. The same way with James, you failed to show me that James thinks Jesus is God. And I'm saying that Christology in James is very similar to Q. The same way James Tabor posits that.
So here's what's going to happen. Anytime we bring up anyone like the author of Reconstructed Q claiming Jesus is God, you're going to say, well, no, he can't actually be referring to that because no one actually thought that. Therefore, this passage cannot be referring to Jesus as God. Why? Because no one actually thought that. Why? So therefore, that's circular.
So you have to prove
that's circular.
Can you prove someone thought that?
I'm showing you Q. And then you're saying, your response to me is, no one thought that, so that's not what that author can mean. And because no one thought that, that's not what this author can mean. That's circular.
Here, Mike, I'll even
Mark believes
this is my argument.
It. Luke believes it.
No,
John
it's not circular. You're misrepresenting.
Paul believes it. The author of Hebrews believes it. James believes it.
Okay, beautiful. Here, I'm going to give you an argument that Matthew doesn't believe it. And are you going to engage with it or not?
No, because we don't need to keep going to all these things.
You guys aren't engaging with the arguments that they don't believe he's God. Matthew 24:36.
Because your evidence is the same every time. Going to another passage isn't going to change anything. Every single time you say it's logically possible that this author doesn't mean that, and you say, and since every author is logically possible to be interpreted some other way, no one taught it.
No, I'm giving you probable. Great. I'm giving you probable indications. So, for example,
you're not giving me probable indications of anything. No, you're not.
With Mark 10:18, did I not bring the early fathers interpreting it? Did I not bring the context up as points?
You brought us early fathers. You brought us early fathers that believed that Jesus was part of the divine Godhead in a subordinate sense. In your argument, I don't actually think they're subordinates, but in your argument, they're subordinates. But they still believe that Jesus is part of the divine Godhead. They believe he's part of Yahweh. The authors you are appealing to believe that Jesus is Yahweh.
Okay.
And you're saying no one believes that Jesus is Yahweh.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you one more time. Are you going to answer how Jesus doesn't know the hour in Matthew 24:36 or not?
Again, Dean, this was very clear. That's exactly what's going on. You want to clip stuff here, and we've already acknowledged,
What?
even if you're right about Matthew and Mark, that doesn't change
You guys
what
aren't
Q is
engaging.
saying.
You guys aren't engaging, man. Come on.
No,
I've
you're not
engaged with that
engaging.
argument
You're
a million
assuming-
times.
you're
I'm sure
assuming
Mike
bad
has engaged
faith.
with it a million times. We
I've
don't need to
engaged with
engage
it a
with it
million
times.
again
You're
just
assuming
because
bad
you want to
faith
jump
instead
to
of
another
engaging.
spot to try to get your little clip because you failed to get your
When-
little clip this whole time. You
Inspiring
just keep
philosophy
jumping to
clipped
something
me
else to
last
try to get a
time.
clip.
IP, did I clip you last time or you clipped me?
What, on our last conversation?
Yes. Did I clip you or you clipped me?
Oh, I clip you in a short, yeah, because
Okay,
you were
beautiful.
threatening
I
to do the
didn't
same
clip-
thing.
And I didn't clip you for anything. So you're saying I'm with bad faith. I could easily say that more likely for you. And I'm still engaging
Because you've
with you.
demonstrated it. We
here-
didn't start
here-
out
you-
assuming you were
wait a
bad
minute,
faith. You
you've never
demonstrated through the
audience
whole
wants to-
argument.
Here,
You've never
Thaddeus,
clipped anyone? You've never clipped anyone?
I
What are
didn't
talking
clip
about?
you,
clip
did I?
people.
Am I engaging in
You've
bad
clipped
faith
other
with you?
people. You have clipped
am
so
I-
many people, Dean.
Okay, but am I engaging in bad faith with you?
You're not engaging in bad faith. This is a
thank
speculation.
you.
This is irrelevant to the point, though. Again,
So
going
why are you guys
back,
bringing it up?
because we're going back to Q. And again, we're pointing out
Okay,
the argument is
let's talk
circular.
about it.
We're talking about how the
Bert,
argument is very
Mike,
circular.
everyone, be it on the Christian or Muslim side, wants to see engagement on these Christological points. And this is relevant to the discussion about the Christology at the
No.
time.
Hey,
So
No,
are you,
it's
so
not.
are you
You know
gonna-
why?
are you
You
gonna
know
engage with
why?
Jesus? Are you going to
You know
engage
why
with
it's
Jesus
not?
on
Because
the
the
hour?
actual conversation was show us Islam is true, and I was letting you go through to try to make an argument to show Islam
Yeah,
is true.
Islam
And
shows
you
the
were
earliest
building
Christology.
on Q. Your argument is building on Q, and I let you jump around a little bit, and I'm getting frustrated with it all because you're not actually talking about Q. You said there was nothing in Q that contradicts Islam. The Lord,
Yes.
Lord passage does. And your
And
only
I'm-
argument is
yeah.
like your only argument. No one believed that Jesus was God, therefore this author can't believe Jesus was God. That's
Yes.
circular.
No, it's not. Okay, I'll tell you why it's not circular. Because here I'm saying, okay, I'm looking at Q, the passage Lord, Lord, and I'm saying there's two hypotheses. He's God or he's not God. And I'm telling you, I'm trying to establish which hypothesis is more likely. And I'm telling you that given the fact that all of these other texts, including Matthew, does not depict Jesus as God, and Matthew's reading Q, Luke is reading Q, they don't believe Jesus is God. Given these sources and all of these texts and all of these people don't believe Jesus is God, excluding Q, therefore it's unlikely Q is depicting Jesus as God. That's my claim. That's not begging the question. That's not circular.
And then we did a little bit of that with you. I didn't even give you the second argument for James that shows Jesus as God from like James 2:1.
you can give it. Go ahead, man. I'm engaging. You're not engaging.
No, I don't want to keep jumping around. I want to stick to Q. That's my point. I could keep jumping around and go to other passages. Like you want to go to the hour passage.
Okay. Here. Matthew uses Q, correct? Under this theory that we're granting, yeah.
Sure. On your
Okay.
you
so
believe the
so it would be
reconstruction.
it would be likely that Matthew depicts Jesus as God because he's using Q and he's using the Lord passage, correct?
No, not necessarily. It could be misunderstanding it.
Oh, damn. So the
No, not necessarily. You,
I
you
mean, we're
jumped to
talking about
conclusions.
logical possibilities, right?
is
We're not
Matthew a
talking
Jew?
about what's the reality.
Mike, is Matthew a
Dude,
Jew?
We're talking. Okay. Remember, we've granted this possibility for you already.
Yes. Yes.
That Matthew. Okay, so I'm not agreeing with you that Matthew doesn't say Jesus is God. I think he clearly does. But I'm on that, for example, no, he could just have missed it. He could have just misunderstood it. Okay, doesn't change the fact.
It's unlikely. I'll tell you why it's unlikely. Because you said in your own video, the Jews around Jesus would have understood Lord, Lord to be a reference to the divine name. You said that in your own video. Do you agree?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, of
Is
course they
Matthew
would, yeah.
is Matthew most likely a Jew?
Yeah,
Okay, so he's a Jew that would have understand Lord, Lord meaning God.
that's why he thinks Jesus is God. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about that then. That's the whole point. So in Matthew 24:36, he says Jesus doesn't know the hour. Can you give me a defeater to my hypothesis that this means
I
Jesus
told
is not
you
God?
we are not going to keep jumping
Okay, no
around.
problem.
Okay.
Okay,
We're not
we're
going
gonna
to
wrap
keep
it up
jumping
then.
around.
Yeah,
We're going to what?
We're gonna wrap it up then because like I'm not wasting my time on this.
Yeah, let's do that. We're just going in circles at.
Yeah,
this
we're just
point.
going in circles.
Yeah. I appreciate that, but Mike, I do appreciate the fact that you let me come on, you let me express what I'm saying, and you moderated quite well.
Yeah,
and you allowed
he
to show my
kept me under
sources.
control.
Appreciate it.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Hey, can I ask you one unrelated question,
Real quick,
Dean,
Thaddeus.
before you
I didn't get to hear all what Dean said. Finish what you're saying, Dean, because I don't want to. I want to let you get all.
No,
your
I'm
thoughts
saying,
out.
I'm saying, a lot of platforms, whether it be Muslim or Christian, a lot of the time, they don't express their ideas thoroughly. There's kicking, there's muting. Not once did you mute me here. I'll give you that, right?
Thank you.
And obviously that's why I came back from the last time because I saw you were being quite fair with engagement. However, what I see from you as well is, I'm being very honest, is you associate with people who eat the Quran, who go ahead and blaspheme Islam, right? I want to know your genuine thoughts. Do you believe someone who goes ahead and eats the Quran in response to a young Muslim coming on his panel, I think he was like 16, 17, the fact that the young man wouldn't answer his question, David Wood went ahead and ate the Quran. Do you think that's the behavior of someone you should associate yourself with?
Wait, so where did this happen? What are you talking about?
That's not accurate.
So it was on God Logic's platform. There was this young Muslim who was engaging with David Wood, apostate prophet, and God Logic. David Wood got infuriated, grabbed the Quran, ripped the page out, and started eating it. Do you think that's a behavior of someone you should associate yourself with?
Thaddeus, what is he talking about? I don't know what's context.
I don't think that is an accurate representation of what happened, but if you give us the clip, we'll look at it. But that's so you're talking about behavior now. So now I get to ask you a behavior.
Don't do it too quick way. Don't do it too quick way.
No. I was going to ask you this before you brought up anything. I wanted to ask you.
Don't do it too quick way. Add the context you need to add. Go ahead.
I believe that. I don't know for 100% certain, so I'm speculating here. To be clear, I haven't seen the exact clip that you're referring to. But David's normal methodology is to do that in response to inappropriate behavior by people, and especially targeting of people who are not part of the discussion. And I suspect that's probably what happened there as well, although I, again, haven't seen it.
Okay, here's what I would say to this. Let me answer you, D. Even if you're right, I mean, the Christian response is not to do this kind of stuff. The Christian response is, hey, we are all sinners. We're all going to make mistakes. We don't just therefore have this Pharisaic mindset where we disassociate with people because they're not perfect. You're not perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm not going to say, well, I'm not going to have Dean Responds on the channel because he is imperfect in ways. No, okay. I'm gonna bring you on and I'll talk to you, and I'm going to associate with people who are imperfect because it's impossible not to.
Fair. No, I agree with that. People slip. People have to, everyone's going to make mistakes. I agree with that. But there's a level of disrespect where someone's eating another person's revered scripture. That those are the lines that I'm sure when we're engaging in online discussion or in real life discussion, those are the lines we don't cross, dude. No one, I don't. Do you ever see a Muslim? Wait, one second. Let me finish my point.
Go ahead.
My point is that you seem like a respectful guy, IP, right?
Thank you.
You seem like a respectful guy. I'm just saying this as in, if you want Muslims to really honestly engage with you and to have these discussions and so on, and to maintain respect with you, you got to rethink who associate with, because no Muslim is going on panels eating the Bible. Do you agree with that? No Muslim da'i is doing that.
Here's what I want to say on this.
This guy's insane.
I don't
care if someone eats the Bible.
You know what? Honestly, I don't care if you respect.
You don't care if someone eats the Bible?
I don't. No, here's why. Jesus told Peter, put your sword away, he who lives by bread. If Jesus wanted us to worry about that kind of stuff, about what the Gentiles are going to do or what the non-Christians are going to do, he would have told us. He said they're going to hate you, they're going to persecute you, they're going to bring you before, and we are to pray for them and love them. If you're eating the Bible, Dean, I'm still going to pray for you and love you, and when you come to Christianity, I'm going to welcome you, and I'm not going to be like, oh, I can't associate with this because of this horrible stuff. That's not how we take this thing. We expect when we go out to the world that people are going to disrespect our scriptures. They're going to hate us. We're just supposed to love them and preach the gospel. What you guys keep doing in Islam is you take Islamic principles and standards, you impose them on us and expect us to respond.
Okay, so let me get this right. In Christianity, if someone's a reprobate, a person who does major sins or that disrespects other religions, right? You believe that's not Christian-like. If someone's a reprobate, degenerate online, presenting themselves in this fashion, does that not qualify for someone you're not going to associate with? You don't mind that?
Well, you said major sins. I don't think it's a major sin to disrespect other religions.
Okay. So you don't believe it's something that's even not a major sin. It's something that's very bad. Would you?
No, I don't think that at all.
You don't think it's very bad to disrespect another religion? I think
it's perfectly fine to disrespect Talmudic Judaism.
But on the part that you want to critique them, sure. But you're not going to bring a Talmud and start eating it, are you?
I might.
I mean, it depends on
this guy.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing.
This guy's off his head.
If there was a radical Jewish sect saying things like, oh, we're going to start contacting your wives and threatening them if you don't start attacking Talmudic Judaism, and I knew that would get them to stop.
That's a different context. No, I agree with that. But
okay, cool.
But I'm talking about a context where there's a Muslim engaging with you, a young Muslim, guy
I'll
engaging
help you
with
out,
you.
Dean.
And then wait, one second. I'm just going to establish this point. That
go ahead.
But even putting that to the side, the whole Anas thing, I can get you the clip later. But even using arguments like let's be honest, do you believe the Zut argument is actually a real argument against Islam, or do you believe that that's a misrepresentation of the Islamic texts?
Really, the Zut. Oh, sorry, I didn't actually hear what you said there. The Zut, the Al Zut, right?
Yeah. Do you think that's a misrepresentation of the Islamic text, or do you think that's an honest argument?
David, I'll give you David's position. He says he's taking one of the interpretations of the text, but the point of that is, as he has said, the whole point is that if people are going to keep lying about what the Bible says by saying things like the Rebecca is 3 or Mary is 12, we're not going to lie, but we're going to take interpretations you're not going to like about texts that are plausible. But my whole thing about the whole Zut thing, and I'll tell you, I said this on Giant DOC's live. I don't think that happened. I don't think that happened at all. I think that's. So
you don't think it's plausible then?
Plausible what?
It can be plausible and still not be true.
Okay. Yeah. So do you think it's plausible, the reading?
What? Like, what are you talking about?
The Zut's reading. Do you think that's plausible or not? I want to see if you're honest.
So he's saying, given that these texts do have a historical basis, is David's reading plausible?
It's one of the plausible readings.
Okay, so you believe that. Okay. Did you know Apostate Prophet, when he debated me, a modern day debate, by the way, he rejected the second debate the day before.
Yeah, here, let me say something on that. I want to say flat out, publicly, he should agree to the second debate. He absolutely should.
Okay, beautiful. So what has he? So why don't you do you speak to him about that? Do you tell him, listen, why?
I told him he should do it. I have told him personally he should debate you the second time.
So he's engaging in bad faith by not engaging with it, right?
He should definitely debate you. He is in the wrong there. He knows I think this, but I still love him as a Christian because I'm called to do that. I told you I work with imperfect people all the time.
Okay, so but that was my point, regardless. But I appreciate that. That's why, Mike, I don't see the way I see what's his name, AP and David Wood and such. I don't believe you'll ever grab a Quran and go ahead and eat it. But by associating with them, bro, even Christians on Twitter and YouTube, etc., they're pointing that out to you, and I'm just guessing that you're ignoring them or something because they're telling you, listen, bro, like, and you even made a video on it saying, listen, I'll still associate with David Wood because he's a repentant sinner, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. But my point is that with the Zut thing, going back to that, even AP, in my debate with him, he said, yeah, no, that's a troll argument. He was pretty much saying. He was saying that's not a real argument. David Wood doesn't believe in that. He's just saying that.
It's not an argument against the falsity of Islam, if that's what you mean.
No. He means that he doesn't actually believe that's a likely reading of the text. That's what he told me, pretty much.
Okay.
No, maybe AP said that, maybe he didn't. I don't know. But if he just said it was a troll argument, he's saying it's not an argument against the truth of Islam. It could be a true event.
He means that David doesn't intend people to take him seriously. Now, when David made that video on the Zut argument, did he make that video clarifying this is not an actual reading that is probable?
It is an actual reading, though. It's just not the only
so it's not just him being uncharitable, yeah?
I don't know what's going on. I literally talked to him about it. Do you want me to bring him up here?
He's being uncharitable.
Yeah, they all contradicted themselves. The point is that
he's not being maximum charitable. He's taking a possible interpretation that isn't the only possible interpretation that happens to be the worst one. Yes, he's not being charitable. That is an accurate statement.
Okay, let me ask you something. If I take a merely possible interpretation where Jesus says, where Jesus says, don't wash your hands to the Pharisees. Not in that sense, literally, but he says, they tell him, why aren't you disciples washing your hands? And then I take a reading where it's like, yeah, Jesus is an unhygienic man because he doesn't want people to wash their hands before they eat. And then I don't clarify in the video, I am just doing this because you guys are being uncharitable. If I don't clarify in the video, is that being honest in apologetics or is that being dishonest?
I don't think he's being dishonest.
I think that's a false dichotomy. That's a false dichotomy.
Yeah, how is it false? Go ahead.
I think it's a bad analogy.
Because it could just be that he forgot, or he's trying to push a point, or he says it somewhere else. I mean, like, there's a lot of other possible.
He does say it somewhere else numerous times. Many times before he made that Zut video, he said, if you guys keep pushing all these ridiculous things about the Bible, we're going to stop being charitable and take the worst possible interpretation of every passage.
If I remember correctly, that was his point. Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying that the Zut reading he gives is a probable reading, and he's not just being uncharitable. Is that your position?
No,
could be
what
both.
Thaddeus just said. What Thaddeus just said. It could be a plausible reading, but the reason he's doing it is to get Muslims to stop taking uncharitable readings and lying about things in our Bible, like the Rebecca's 3, for example.
Okay, but did he say in the video that blew up that he has on his channel, 400K views? Did he say that?
I don't
didn't say it
remember,
within
man.
the video
He
itself.
presents it as though it's an actual legit argument.
Actually, he phrases it as a question. Can anyone explain this? If you want to be
So
technical.
he's saying that. So if a Muslim watches that, is he gonna think that what David's presenting is probable and that David believes in it? Yes.
I don't know, man. This is
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
No,
That shows.
let me say.
He's
I
being
let you talk. Let me
disingenuous,
say
man.
something.
Why
Let me
can't you
say
just he's
something
being
here.
disingenuous with the argument?
Let me say something here. There
If you
is
don't
so
want-
much context
Yeah,
here
go ahead, yeah.
that I don't know to say, because again, you're talking about what David Wood thinks that, and I'm trying to go off memory at this point. Yeah, I believe AP did say it's a true argument, and I do remember David saying we're doing the Zut thing. We're taking this plausible, but one of the readings, and we're taking the most extreme, like reading in terms of making Muhammad look bad to get people to stop lying about the Bible. Like, I think that's what he said, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, but when Muslims bring up arguments like Rebecca being 3, they actually believe that based on the evidence they have? David doesn't believe that with the Zut thing.
He does. No, he does. He says he definitely believes it's the most plausible interpretation of the
really?
text.
Okay.
Whether he believes the text is historical or not, I'm not 100% certain.
Okay.
But given that the text is historical, he believes that's the most plausible interpretation.
You
of the
believe
text.
that's so? Why did AP say that he's just using this? As a
AP
troll
has a
argument?
different opinion.
Oh my god!
I don't know, man.
You see how you
Maybe-
guys are
maybe he
contradicting
misspoke.
yourself.
You're
Yeah,
asking me
maybe.
to read AP's mind. I know David personally.
Maybe.
I barely know AP. I don't know why AP said what he
Dean,
said.
maybe AP did contradict him. I mean, like, no one claims that everyone is perfect here, as I said earlier. This is all going back to why should I associate with David Wood, right? That's what this is about, right?
Exactly. And my two points are this: one, he eats the Quran not in self-defense type of thing. He eats the Quran when a young Muslim comes on his panel and is trying to make an argument and is interrupting him.
Did he
So,
warn him before?
I'm going to help you out. I'm going to help you out, Dean.
What does
If-
warning have to do with anything, dude? Why would you
no,
warn that?
Hold on.
You're
Just,
being
just let me
interrupted.
help
I'm
you
actually
out.
just curious.
You're
I'm actually just
going to
curious.
like what I say.
Probably did.
You're
I
gonna
don't
like
know.
what I say.
Probably.
Okay.
If you are correct and there is no context that justifies David eating the Quran in that particular instance, after I review it, then I will personally and publicly say David was wrong in that instance.
Okay. Is that likewise, Mike?
Yeah, if that's fine. He was wrong there, sure, but I don't see that as a major sin. Let's be clear. I see that as a minor issue because, again, I don't care if someone eats the Bible because my faith is not based on a translation of a book somewhere or something like that.
No. The point is, it's not that's the same for us, bro. But the point is that someone's purposely engaging in bad faith and disrespect, harboring ill intent when he's arguing. All right. Now, listen, if someone's going to be going around blaspheming Christianity as a Muslim, I'll be the first to condemn them on that. I'll say, what are you doing? You shouldn't be doing that, right? Even if it's figures that I don't revere, like Paul, I'll just be like, bro, what are you doing? In the Quran, it teaches us not to disrespect those people's gods, like your God or whatever else, Hindu God or whatever, because they're going to blaspheme you back, right? But the point I'm saying is that is there any line that someone can cross for you not to associate with them as a Christian?
Yeah, in the video that I talked about David Wood, it was they're committing a major sin, something like sexual sin, and they're not repenting. So let's say, for example, Thaddeus here were to have an affair, and I would say, Thaddeus, don't have an affair. No, it's fine. Okay, I can't associate with that's excommunicato, and that's in a colloquial sense, I guess, not like in an official church doctrine sense, but I would excommunicate him in terms of association. That's a major moral sin. I don't think if somebody started eating pages of the Bhagavad Gita, for example, I forget how to pronounce that, but again, the Gita. I'm not okay, weird, but I mean, that's not a major sin in my view.
If someone intentionally goes ahead and tries to disrespect other religions, not in self-defense, but he goes out of his way to disrespect them. He goes out of his way to do that. And do you believe that someone going out of the way to disrespect other religions is a sin, like something that a Christian shouldn't be doing?
I would
Other
say it's
religions.
not
So
wise,
for
not
example,
something I would
if
personally
Thaddeus-
do.
Oh wait, I'll
I mean,
give
do
you an
want me to
example.
answer or not?
One second. I'll just give you an example. If Thaddeus right now, out of nowhere, grabs a Quran, starts eating it to try and instigate hate and try to get a reaction out of me, do you condemn that?
I would say Thaddeus, not right now. I mean, this is not helping the conversation.
Not right now. What are you talking about? So there's a time where you could.
Yes, because you said there were times earlier we could, like in response to what you said.
In the sense that, no, so you shouldn't be saying not right now. You should be saying Dean hasn't done anything for you to do that. What are you doing?
Okay, that's fair. That's
Okay,
kind of what I meant. I just said it in my own words,
All right. So if that's what you meant, fair. Okay. Now, if Thaddeus goes ahead and says, "I don't care. I'm gonna keep doing it," are you gonna disassociate from him?
I would be like, all right, this. See how I put him back in and back out? I would be like, we're not doing this right now. I'm trying to talk to Dean. So see how I just kind of took him in, took him out? Same thing, like just like that. That's all I would do because I'm trying to have a conversation.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sure he would stop me. I'm sure he would stop me if I disrespected his rules, right?
Yeah.
And I'll help you out here. I don't think it would be sinful to eat a book, whether it's the Quran or Dr. Seuss
with
or
the intent of
whatever.
trying to disrespect someone.
Hold on.
Sinful?
Just let me finish. I don't think it would be in and of itself sinful. I think it would be unwise to do it for no reason whatsoever. I think it would be something I would refuse to associate with. And like I said, if David didn't have a reason that justified his actions, I will personally, privately, and publicly call him out on that particular instance. But that's how I would deal with someone doing something that I find inappropriate. I would tell them that I find it inappropriately.
No.
And yes, if they insisted on doing it anyway, saying, nope, I'm going to do it on your stream in front of you, whether you like it or not, then I would not associate with them.
Dean, I did
don't have
this
a problem
publicly
saying
to
that.
David before.
But that's not the same.
I did this publicly. When right after Charlie Kirk was shot, I went on David Woods to do a stream, and he actually put something under Candace Owens' tweet attacking her. And I said on that stream, people go back, it's on his channel. I said, I don't think this was the time, David, for that. I think that was wrong. Now I think it's fine because she's lost her freaking mind. But I mean, at that very moment, I think it just wasn't the time. And I told him that. So I'm fine saying, I think you went a little too far at this time.
Okay, so the same way Thaddeus said that if it's the case that David got a Quran and ate it in response to just a young Muslim boy interrupting him in a StreamYard, you're gonna publicly also make a comment and say, listen, you don't advocate for this type of thing, and you condemn what he did. Is that fair?
I mean, I'm not gonna make a big tweet about it because I have other things. I'm saying right now, if that happens, he went too far. Big deal. It's not like a major sin though.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's nothing in the world, but we got to have a consistency argument here. We engaged you on David Wood for quite a long time. I'm not going to talk about associating with someone else. I'm going to talk about your direct actions. Do you think it was appropriate for you to conspire to cover up the actions of Muhammad Hijab and his abuse of Aisha?
No, I don't believe any of that was wrong.
You said everything you did was fine, even though the
so let me put it this way: if there's a random lady online that's going ahead and trying to attack Islam, saying to Islamophobes, "Hey, I have stuff on Islam that you might like," right? And then they're just making up a bunch of stuff and speaking a bunch of nonsense with no evidence. Then
was it made up?
Then, if there's just a random person online, I don't know their face, I don't know their name, I don't know their last name, I'm gonna assume this person is just someone that I shouldn't be associating with, and that I'm not gonna trust any word they say because they're anonymous.
I didn't ask if you wanted to associate with Aisha. I asked if it was
if
appropriate for you to conspire. Debate back and forth the best way to defend hijab.
Thaddeus.
You debated back and forth the best way to defend him. I'm saying right now, any sin, conspiracy.
Any sin that a Muslim does, I condemn it if it's sinful. Any sin that they do. So if Muhammad Hijab was sinful in this situation he had with someone, I don't know his lifestyle. I live how many kilometers away from this guy?
We've seen the group text. You knew what was going on.
How do you know I knew what was going on in the group chat?
You're saying you're responding to things that you're not reading in the group chat. Because you're giving advice. You're giving advice on how to best undermine Aisha.
So Thaddeus, I would help a Muslim if a random lady online is attacking him that I don't know their first name. I don't know their. Wait, one second. If someone comes, I don't know their first name, I don't know their last name, I don't know their face, I don't know anything about them, and they are going on platforms with people that disrespect Islam, I am not gonna give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm gonna give the benefit.
When
I'm
you
gonna,
were conspiring, had
I'm not done
Aisha
yet,
gone
dude.
on my
Dude,
show
dude,
or
I'm not done
David's
yet.
show
I'm not
at
done
that
yet.
time?
I'm not done yet. I'm not done yet. I'm gonna give the benefit of the doubt and support my Muslim brother over an anonymous woman that I have no idea who is. Yeah.
By conspiring, the best way to undermine her, regardless of what the truth of the situation is.
From what I saw, what she was tweeting and what she was saying, there's something wrong with this random anonymous
All
woman.
she tweeted towards David was, "I have some information."
No.
about
Have you seen her Twitter account?
I have seen her Twitter. I saw all of her Twitter.
Okay.
I was intimately involved in this, right? You
Yeah,
should know this, right? This is how you
beautiful.
know
So-
me, right?
okay,
You know
okay,
all
okay,
about
beautiful.
how I would.
Did she not? Okay, beautiful. Did she conspire with people that are enemies with Islam, saying, "I have stuff on Islam that you might be interested in"?
She did say,
Okay,
I have
so-
stuff you
so-
might be. Hold on.
No,
hold
no,
on.
about
You
Islam.
gotta let me finish the sentence.
About Islam.
You gotta let me finish the
Let
sentence.
him finish
Did
the
she say that?
sentence. Let
Go
him
ahead.
finish.
She
Go ahead.
did tweet at David and Abdullah Samir publicly that she had information. That's all
About
she said. If
Islam.
I saw that tweet
She said
without
about
knowing
Islam.
the context, yeah, about Islam. If I saw that tweet without
Okay.
context,
No,
I would
if-
assume that she wanted to give a good argument for the truth of Islam. That's what I would assume about it.
Dude, the point is she's going out of her way to be an enemy of Islam.
Yeah,
saying,
why was she doing that?
I
Why was
want
she doing
you. If someone has beef with inspiring philosophy, right, and they say, "Oh, some random account says on
So-
Twitter," and it goes on YouTube.
Hey, Dean,
let me make my point.
Hold on.
Let me make my
Okay,
point.
make
Let me
your
make my point. My point is, if some random account, I don't know, the first name, last name, face, nothing, and they're making claims about inspiring philosophy, and they're saying, and they're coming on Muslim platforms saying, "I have information
Mm-hmm.
about Christianity that you might be interested in." If I was a Christian, I'll be like, "What is this?" I'm not going to
Okay,
trust
but
anything this person
you're not
says.
engaging honestly. You're not engaging honestly.
Okay,
You're
tell me why.
claiming
Go
that's what
ahead.
you knew about the situation, but that's not what you knew about the situation. The
That
whole
is what I knew.
conspiracy was after Aisha.
Do you
had
have the
done
WhatsApp group?
interview? After behind.
Do you have the WhatsApp group with you?
Oh, so you're conspiring how to undermine
Do you have the
Aisha
WhatsApp group with
before?
you?
No, I don't.
Do you have it with you?
Obviously.
Okay. So do you have the context of the conversations and everything that was said?
Sorry, are you accusing Salman of lying
Oh my
about
days,
the
dude.
conversation? Are you accusing Salman of lying? That those statements were made after the scandal went public?
Dude, I knew this random lady coming on Muslim platforms.
I'm not asking
doing crazy.
I'm asking you,
doing
when were
crazy
the
stuff
statements made?
way
When
before
were the
messages.
statements made? I'm not asking when
I
you
don't
became
give her
familiar
benefit
with
of,
her.
I don't give her the benefit of the doubt. But listen,
When were
if
the
Muhammad-
statements
but
made?
I'll give you for now. I'll give you for now. If Muhammad Hijab did anything that was sinful, which is the stuff that she claimed, I condemn him 100%.
Again.
Okay.
Okay.
What more do you want from me, dude?
What were the you implied the statements were made before it became a public scandal? Were they made before? Were your suggestions on how to undermine Aisha?
Dude, like,
made
what do
before
you
or
want
after?
from me? Like what do you want to ask?
The
Go ahead.
truth. That's what I want. Yeah.
Yeah.
The truth.
What do you want from me? Go ahead. Yeah.
I asked you when those statements were made because you implied they were made.
What
before she
statements?
went
What are you
public.
talking about? Yeah.
The debate back and forth between you
Yes.
and Hashem as to whether you should portray her as having mental health issues or
Yes.
you should portray her as an apostate. When were those
Yes.
statements made?
Dude, I don't know. What are you talking about?
You're
Just bringing random WhatsApp messages from months ago. Like, what are you talking about?
Okay, I got my answer.
So what's the
So
context of
here-
the conversation? What's the context of the conversation?
The context
Why are we,
is
Yeah.
you're advising Hijab on how to make a video response that he claims is not his response, but we all know it is
Okay.
his response.
Okay.
You're plotting on the best way to undermine this woman. You're not
Yeah,
concerned whether her
I'm
story is
I'm
true or
saying
not.
that my opinion is that she's mentally ill considering how she conducts herself online.
Yeah, I know your video. I responded to your whole video. You lost out. They decided to
Okay.
portray her as an apostate, and you lost out because you wanted to portray her as mentally ill.
If she's mentally ill and apostate, both ways, she's not trustworthy in her testimony.
But both are false. She's not an apostate, and she's not
How do you
mentally
know?
ill.
How do you know she's not apostate? Do you know the nullifiers of Islam? What are the 10 nullifiers of Islam? Tell me.
Are you going to say she's apostate because she doubts tenets of Islam?
So one of the nullifiers of Islam, just to educate you, you collude with the enemies of Islam against
She wasn't
a
colluding
Muslim.
with anyone.
Yeah. So if
So
someone,
if you go to the police,
yeah, dude,
hold
I'm,
on a
I'm,
second.
I'm educating
Can I
you
ask-
here. I'm educating you. I got you. So
No,
part of the
you're not
nawaqid-
educating me. I know
part
this.
of-
I just
part of
didn't
the
know where you
nawaqid-
were going to go.
A part of the
But go ahead.
nawaqid of Islam. I'm gonna lay this out, and then that's it, bro. If you're gonna, by the way, Mike,
after I leave this out, I would expect you to message AP to debate me on modern day debate, right? Considering,
Again, he should. I've already said that.
and by the way, do you condemn the fact that he called me a rapist?
I don't remember this at all.
Wallahi, uqsim billah, modern day debate was there. This dude crashed out after I debated him, didn't insult him, nothing. At the end of the debate, this guy started calling me a rapist in the back studio. Do you condemn that?
Well, yeah, you shouldn't call you a rapist if there's no evidence that you are.
Yeah,
that's wrong.
So you associate
He said he
yourselves
got
with
emotional.
Okay,
But he
dude,
said he got emotional.
why
He
is
said he was wrong.
So why is he?
Didn't he say he got emotional?
Okay. So why was
He
he?
said
He's
that
getting
after.
emotional. He's getting emotional about me interrupting him. Like, is he that unstable? What?
What are you trying to do? Here?
Okay,
You're just trying to make guilt by association.
Why are you trying? Why are you trying to change this debate on AP?
What I'm saying is, you
can't raise anything against Mike.
You
so you
associate
talk
people
about
mentally-
other people. I
Yeah,
talk
you
directly about
associate
you, and
yourself
then
with
you
men-
change the
Here,
subject to AP.
Thaddeus, you associate yourself with those that are mentally ill, right? And you guys still associate yourselves with them, and they dodge debates. Okay, I will tell you
Who
right
dodges
now,
debates? Oh, AP.
AP dodged a debate, did he not?
I don't
once
know.
again
I have
said
no
he
idea.
should agree to the second
Okay,
debate.
okay, beautiful. Now I'm gonna make my last. I'm gonna just make my last statement on what you're saying. What you're saying is, she's not an apostate. What's your evidence for that? If she goes to allies of Islam trying to attack Islam because she said she has evidence against Islam, then she's an apostate. That's the ruling
Okay.
of Islam.
All right. So you want to say that if she works with enemies of Islam against
Muslims, yes.
So in your
against
view, she's
Muslims.
already going
So-
to hell.
Yeah,
No,
she's
that
already
doesn't mean
apostate
that.
according to you. That's fine. That's fine.
Just
You can argue
curious.
that she's an apostate, and in your view, that makes her testimony invalid. I got your defense, but let me just make sure that you're consistent here. Is it wrong for a Muslim to go to the police to turn in a Muslim who's done a crime against them, or seek help from the police for a Muslim does a crime against them? Say a Muslim breaks into your house, you got it on video camera.
No,
You go to the police with it. Is that wrong or right?
No,
And the non-Muslim police, obviously.
that's fine. That's fine.
What is the difference then? Aisha was abused.
Yeah,
She had crimes committed against her.
But that's circular. Because how do we know she got abused? She's saying from her testimony.
Well, how do you?
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
her
thanks,
testimony is
bro. Thanks,
reliable.
bro.
Her testimony is reliable.
How
No,
do you
it's
know it's
circular on your
reliable? That's
part.
circular.
You're saying her testimony is unreliable. I'm judging her testimony on its
Yeah,
own right.
so
It
the-
has
so
all
the
the
point- the
marks
point is-
of
okay, here.
believable,
If
and it's
someone-
backed. It's
Here, I
backed
got-
by
I got-
Sheikh
I got you.
Tarani.
That
It's
is-
backed by
that is-
Muhammad Hijab's text
that is-
messages.
that
It's
is-
backed by the investigation of behind
that is-
veils. It's reliable.
That is.
Yeah.
If someone is wronged in a Muslim, like I'll tell you straight up, if someone's wronged, you have to go to an independent Muslim investigation, right? You got to have people that are Muslims
is not-
investigate the issue, and they have to get testimonies over what happened, right?
Yeah,
Now,
and that's what
when
happened.
there's, yeah, okay. So do we have any testimonies that this nikah supposedly happened?
Yeah.
Do we have
Okay,
text
from who?
messages? Yeah.
No testimonies. When you have a nikah and you get married to someone,
Only
when you get
people
married-
count in
when
Islam.
you get married, wait one second.
my
When
God.
you get married to someone in Islam, there are people that are there that you trust that are give testimonies, right?
Uh-huh.
Do we have anyone that was there that gave testimonies?
Oh, they have to be there now. So someone
course.
knowing them,
Of
and
course,
a
that's-
highly reliable sheikh from the community knowing and testifying to it, that doesn't count anymore.
Which sheikh
Right?
was that?
You got to see
Which
it
sheikh
with
was
your own
that?
eyeballs.
Which sheikh
Sheikh
is that?
Durrani.
And didn't he contradict himself later?
He was being blackmailed by
Oh,
hijab,
okay,
and he
okay,
actually
and-
didn't
and
contradict.
that's another
Hey,
claim,
hold on,
dude. Oh my God.
hold
Let him
on,
finish.
hold
Let
on.
him finish.
If you actually watch, he didn't contradict. He worded it very carefully to sound like a defense of hijab that didn't contradict his statements. He said,
Okay.
"If I've said something wrong, I apologize."
Okay, so was he a witness to the nikah, the contract?
He was not literally a witness. He
All
talked to
right, dude.
witnesses.
So,
himself.
so Islamically speaking, if someone's gonna say, "I was married to this person,"
Yeah,
and he
yeah.
did me wrong, you need testimonies from those that were
I
there,
know.
dude.
You're right.
Okay.
You're right.
There
You're
we
right.
go.
You're right. According to Islam, testimony only counts if it's from the eyewitnesses. And
Yes.
the two eyewitnesses, or I guess the three, right? The three eyewitnesses were handpicked by hijab. So no one can ever prove that he actually did this. We know. We got all the text messages. We got hijab's own statement.
What's the evidence? Okay, first.
It's not Islam. It doesn't
First
count
of all,
under
by
Islam.
the way,
I give you
by the
that.
way,
I give you
I'll-
that. But it
I'll-
would
I'll
count
even
in a
grant
court
you
of
that.
law.
I'll even
Would
grant you
count,
that.
yeah.
I'll grant you that. I'll even grant you that. You know, if someone does a nikah contract, right? You need permission from the father, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Did she get permission from her father?
she did.
All right. What's the evidence for that?
her father's testimony.
Okay, who's her father? What's his first name and last name?
Why is that relevant?
Hey, you don't have anything, bro. You don't have anything.
Right.
We don't have
It's
first names, last names, individuals, personalities, and you guys are just like
right
making claims out of nowhere.
because people are afraid of being abused by the Dawa
okay.
gang community.
Okay,
They
so-
remain anonymous, so we can't trust them. I got it.
Okay, so whatever you say, you can always lay it back to, oh, they're too scared to come out. Why can't I say that?
But we
they're
also saw all the text
Yeah, go on.
messages. We saw all the evidence from hijab
How do you know
where
that's
he
from
faked multiple
how,
things.
how do you know that's from hijab?
I mean, I can't 100%
Oh my God.
prove
Dude,
it's from
you're a waste
hijab,
of time,
but
man,
hijab
honestly.
didn't
Come on,
deny
man.
it.
Come
He
on,
didn't.
dude.
He didn't deny it. And we look at his own testimony. You got to
Come
weigh.
on, dude, bro.
This is
I'm
how
not- I'm-
actual
I'm-
court
I'm not
cases-
interested in
No,
this
this is
anymore.
how actual
You
law
spent-
works. This is how
here.
actual law works. You weigh
yeah,
the
okay.
evidence of the parties.
Yeah.
You look
What's
at
your-
Muhammad hijab.
you don't even
he
have evidence
faked
as
a
his number.
screenshot. He faked a voice call. He pretended a channel wasn't his, and he conspired with
all
people
of
how to
that-
cover it up behind the scenes.
All of that needs justification. The point is, bro, is that you need to get if someone believes that someone did them wrong in a Muslim community, you got to go to an independent Muslim committee. They investigate the evidence,
and they
take testimonies
it's not
from both,
behind veils an independent
and they
Muslim.
and by the way, if someone's going to do a contract, a nikah, you have to agree to it. So if she agreed to a nikah contract, and those people that were there, supposedly they were there and they were handpicked by hijab or whatever, like you're saying, she chose that for herself, and her father chose that for herself.
She was tricked. Yeah, she was manipulated into it. I agree. She was gaslighted.
So why do I care
groomed.
about some? So even if I grant everything's true, why do I care about some dumb girl that put herself in that situation? Why do I care? Some dumb apostate. Why do I care?
Well, obviously you don't. I mean, we've established that quite well.
I don't know anything. I don't know anything of her. I don't know her first name, last name. I don't know anything of her.
Yeah.
Okay, if
someone puts
themselves in
care.
a situation
Okay.
where it's happening, it happens.
Yeah, it's all her fault. I got you. It's all her fault.
So I'm giving you both. Granted, it happened. She put herself in that situation, and now she's saying, "Oh, he did me wrong." But you agreed to the nikah contract. Then, if it didn't happen, which I'm always going to maintain, because I'm going to give hijab the benefit of the doubt over an anonymous person. If it didn't
except
happen,
hijab did
if it didn't, dude, stop interrupting me. If it didn't happen, then again, there's nothing for me to condemn. But what I'm bringing to you is tangible video evidence where APOS, sorry, Apostate Pro. I don't want to disrespect him, so you guys can think that was honestly slip of the tongue. So
Freudian slip.
Yeah. So
So we brought.
I
Well,
have
first
video
of all,
evidence of him-
video
I have
evidence
evidence
doesn't
of him calling
count,
me a
right?
rapist.
It's got to be eyewitness
David Wood is eating
testimony.
the Quran. Do you have
gotta be
video
eyewitness
evidence of anything you're
testimony.
saying?
It's got to be eyewitness testimony, right? Video
Yeah,
doesn't
it's video.
count.
It's video evidence right there for you to
Yeah,
see.
video doesn't count. It's got to be eyewitness testimony.
Modern day debate. I can give you emails from modern day debate saying he did say that. You want to see it?
Well, we'd have to get him on here and hear from himself, because you could have just faked those emails. You see how this game works?
Yeah,
I'm not actually denying this happened.
that's
To be clear,
possible.
I'm not
but
actually denying this happened.
That's
I'm just
possible.
saying this is how the game plays.
Beautiful, beautiful. Go and clarify with him and ask him, did AP call me a rapist? You can get your answer. How about that?
I have no idea. I've never heard this.
Beautiful.
But according to Mike, AP already admitted it and
if you want to
confessed
invite
to
anyone else
himself.
up, that's fine. I'm not interested in what you do in your free time talking about Muslim drama. I deal with intellectual arguments, as we were
Sure
just
you
dealing
do.
with right
Sure
now.
you do.
So we're talking about whether Jesus claims to be God, etc. I was interested in that, and
You're
the point
the-
is,
hey, you're
Bro,
the one who
come
brought
on.
up.
You brought
You
up
brought up
David
David
Wood,
Wood's
apostate
behavior.
prophet, and then Thaddeus just wanted to see a little consistency here. That's all that was going on. If that was all you were interested about, why did you even bring up David Wood and AP?
no, what I'm saying is that's what I focus on in my free time. You focus on
Fair
your free
enough.
time talking about drama, right?
No, I don't.
But
I
whatever, dude,
focus.
whatever you want. But dude, that is. It's fine. You can do that on your free time. On my free time, I deal with intellectual arguments. You deal with Muslim drama. That's fine. And
No, I
all
don't.
this,
That's not
stuff.
accurate.
So
The majority of my
that's fine,
content is
dude.
intellectual
That
arguments.
That's fine. You can do that in your free time. My point was that I wouldn't associate with a blasphemer or someone that I know does major sins
I didn't ask you to
publicly
associate
and
with
doesn't repent for it. Are you going to be consistent and say you won't associate with someone that openly does major sins?
Yeah, absolutely.
As defined
by
within
Christianity.
Okay.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
As
Okay,
defined by
beautiful.
Christianity.
So as long as we can go on common ground there. Now, I expect Thaddeus a condemnation of David Wood once I show you that clip. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to review the whole context, not just your
I
clip.
got
But
you.
if you could point me to the original
what's your
video.
Twitter?
Reasoned
At
answers.
Reasoned
I believe?
Answers.
Reason answers. I got you. I'm gonna.
Yeah, and my DMs are open, so if you want to, you can publicly tweet at me or you can DM it, whatever. It's
I
fine.
got you. I'll send you the clip. Okay. So, Thaddeus, are you interested or Inspiring Philosophy? Given that AP doesn't want to debate me, are you guys interested on doing a modern day debate?
You what? Debating which the Jesus is God?
Whether
What
Jesus
topic?
claimed to be God in the Gospels.
Didn't we just kind of do that in some sense here?
So you don't want to debate it formally?
I mean, I can. I'm just saying. But didn't we just do that? You want to do it
Yeah,
again?
but you didn't want to engage with Matthew 24:36. I want you. To
Yeah, I'd be happy to engage with that argument. The problem was that wasn't really what your argument was today. You
Okay.
were playing.
Okay. So Thaddeus, you want to debate me on that? Yeah.
Sure.
I could. I'll do
Okay.
it too.
beautiful.
I mean,
I
yeah.
can,
That,
whatever.
Thaddeus, you got TikTok?
I technically have a TikTok, but I don't have any content posted on it. So if
No
you're just
problem,
talking about like
no
messaging
problem.
me,
So
that'd be
as
fine.
long as you can go on live, you can go on live. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
okay,
we
beautiful.
can we can do that, Dean. But just remember
You don't
remember
need
on
you don't need any.
Insta-
Sorry, I'm not familiar with TikTok, but my understanding is you have to have a certain number of subscribers to make a live, but I don't think you have to have any to join a live.
Yes, to join online, that's fine. Yeah. You don't need
Yeah.
a certain-
Yeah,
okay.
I can do one.
So
We can
okay,
do
okay,
that at
beautiful.
some point
So-
on Modern Day Debate, Dean. Just remember, as I've said before, I prioritize in-person debates, and I think when you met
in
you talked
person.
about this-
Where would you do in person?
anywhere,
In the States, anywhere?
yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, we
Yeah.
can maybe set that up at a later.
Oh,
date.
okay,
After your
great,
debate.
yeah.
Yeah, after your debate with Libiano, we can set that up.
Yeah, but
So-
here's the thing: I got other debates. I got two debates with
That's
Hassan
fine.
Shibli.
After you're done with all the debates you're scheduled with right now, we can set up.
Right now, I'm scheduled out till May, and then June I have to bunch of travel, so it may
All
not even
good.
be till July.
I assure
But-
you, I'll hit you up after May.
And just remember to tell Libiano that sometimes people have schedules. We don't ever say when we schedule things out. That doesn't mean we have to prepare for that long. It means we have
Okay,
other
I'll
things we're
let-
doing.
I'll let Libiano know. Okay.
Thank you. That'd be nice if you
So-
could stop lying.
So,
That'd be great.
so Thaddeus.
Uh-huh.
let
Yeah,
me
yeah,
add you on
just-
TikTok
just
now.
message me and we'll
what's
work
your
it out.
What's your ad on TikTok?
It should be Reasoned Answers as well.
Reason. How about you follow me because you said you don't have that much followers. So just follow me. It's Dean Responds.
Well,
and I'm
yeah,
gonna follow back
I've
down.
never posted anything, so I might literally.
Okay,
have zero
just follow me at
followers.
Dean Responds right now. I'll give you a follow back. And then what we'll do is Libiano's platform on TikTok has 100K. So that's a big platform. You can bring the mod of your choice, similar to what Coley did. You can bring the mod of your choice. He will be moderating. But it is on Libiano's platform. He won't be doing anything. You bring the mod of your choice. He will be moderating me in your debate. Yeah?
Okay, that sounds fine. I'll have to do it. I'll follow you after this. I'm not going to try to do it live because I'm not like signed into TikTok. Like I said, I never use it, so I'll have to figure out my login and stuff. But I'll
Alright.
follow
give,
you.
give,
by
give me
the
a
end of the
follow.
day.
Shoot me a DM, and then
Yep.
we'll set that up. Okay?
Yep,
See you
sounds
next
good.
week.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. We'll set up a time of your choice next week on Libiano's platform with a mod of your choice. Yeah.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay. Topic is whether Jesus claimed to be God in the Gospels. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Sounds good. All right, guys. Thank you for engaging, and see you later.
All right, see you later. Did you have fun?
That was fun. I can't believe
Awesome.
I wanted to ask him about Aisha because that's super important to me, and then he just walked right into it. Hey, what do you think about David Wood? So
if you're watching, you ever watch this, just want you to know you are not a dumb apostate. Your testimony is valid and should be heard, and you should be given equal treatment. We are praying for you. I'm sorry that these people have come after you in these horrible ways. And there's a reason we're supporting you. It's not just because, the main reason we're supporting you is because you're the image of God and we love and care about you. And we want you to make sure that you get equal treatment and the truth does come out. We're not going to assume you're a dumb apostate. That is not the default position. But man, watching the way Islam handles this kind of stuff, man, that is just the weirdest standards ever. Like this stuff would fly in a court of law, but it wouldn't fly in an Islamic context. What is going on, man?
yeah, and he said I cover Muslim drama and I don't care about intellectual arguments. But I'm sorry, this is very important. This isn't just drama, right? We're talking about the emotional, physical abuse of a human being, someone who bears the image of God. It's not just drama. It's not just someone saying something stupid or whatever. No, we're talking about real world consequences. And he's like, oh, it's no big deal. Well, I agree. It by itself, the scandal doesn't disprove Islam. Of course, it's not an intellectual argument against Islam, but that doesn't mean it's not important. It's very important. This is central to Christianity, that we care about each other, right? How will they know that you are my disciple? By the way you love one another. Christianity is about loving people. Islam is about playing word games and technicalities.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we saw it here. I mean, like, so Jesus says he's Lord in Q, but that doesn't mean he's God, because no one thought that. Therefore, the author cannot mean that he's God, because no one thought that, because the author didn't mean, I mean, it's circular, man. It was so circular. And
yeah. Well, and then to prove no one, well, go to Philippians. Well, no one else believed that he was God, so that's not what Philippians 2 could mean. Or go to Mark. Well, no one else believed that, so Mark didn't believe that, right? It was just the same thing every time. And then he tried to appeal to 2nd, 3rd century church scholars, which normally I would agree that's a valid way to, or that's a valid piece of evidence to inform your view. But he's telling us our view is anachronistic, right? While he's appealing to people who believe that Jesus is God, to try to take a sentence of theirs out of context and say, well, see, they agreed with my interpretation of Mark, except they couldn't possibly have agreed with your interpretation of Mark, regardless of what that sentence says, because they believe Jesus is God. And you're saying that verse proves 100% that Jesus was not God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's totally circular. You can't give him actual evidence. I mean, we didn't even get a chance to get into the Didache, where Jesus, again, claims to be God. Or no, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. They say Hosanna to the God of David. That's clearly referring to Jesus, because it's shifting the liturgical formula. This is something Michael Bird has pointed out. So, man, yeah. There you have it, folks. We noticed none of that. We actually got to evidence for Islam.
Oh, and by the way, Q contradicts Islam in many other ways. Right? There are many passages that are assigned to Q that contradict Islam. And I thought you were alluding to one of them. I thought you were alluding to, I think it's Matthew 11:27 or maybe 12:27, which is supposedly part of Q. Sorry, I had it ready to go
right. I was.
Yeah, 11:27. 11:27.
I was. That was the one I was going to go to right after Lord, but we never got to it. Yeah, all things are already by my Father. No one knows the Son except the Father. Yeah, and no one knows the Father except the Son. Yeah, because that's in Kloppenberg's book. But yeah, it's like, how is this? I'm trying to think the whole time. How is this even evidence for Islam if Q is like? Because you could make the case that like, let's say there was a document. Let's just not call it Q. Let's call it R. There was an R document and it agreed with Islam. That doesn't mean that Islam is true. It just means there were consistent views, but we don't know the full view of that author in itself. It's like finding out, like, you find a document where somebody says, we do not eat bacon. Well, that's consistent with Islam. That does not mean Islam is true, and that does not mean that's what that doesn't mean that author believed Islam is true. I was like, man.
But he was trying to say it was the earliest, but no one actually says that, right? The universal consensus of all scholars, other than like some fringe nutcases, is that the pre-Pauline creeds found in Philippians and 1 Corinthians are the earliest text of the New Testament. And probably most critical scholars would probably say the letters of Paul predate Q as well. You know, I mean, who knows when Q is written, obviously. Those who, you know, even affirm Q hypothesis. But everyone agrees that the creeds are first, right? So his argument is that it's the first, and it has to agree with Islam because no one else said Jesus was God. Therefore, because it's the first, it proves that that was the original Christian theology, which is what the Quran claims, except the Quran doesn't even claim that, of course, right? Only later Muslim scholars are making that claim. As far as the Quran knows, 7th century Christians believe the same thing as what the Quran teaches.
Yeah, this is wild. Best arguments against the perfect preservation of the Quran. Yeah, you just show them 2 Qurans and show their difference. Like, it's so easy to do now. You go to like Surah 37:11, I think is what it is, and just show, is Allah or is Muhammad the one who is wondering, you know? I sent Than a song on Discord. Godlogic loved it. Awesome. Just talk to him there. You guys know the wine contradiction in Quran. One says wine in Allah's drink and made by Allah, but another says wine was made by Satan and Satan's drink. Interesting. I don't know that one. Presence of abrogation, proof of contradictions, because the only purpose of abrogation is to sweep contradictions away without good reason. Yeah.
Yep.
Dean took time from having sex with women and drugs to come here and confront him on the live the other day when you guys tried to join in the banging. I don't think Dean wasn't included in Malik's leaks though, was he? He wasn't listed. I don't want to accuse him of anything he's not done.
I think he might have been mentioned, but there was not any details.
Yeah. So I'm not going to accuse him of that. Paying money for you to remind Dean that this stream is about evidence for Quran, not about the Bible. Yeah. Well, I mean, like we the problem is we got him. He couldn't show Q was aligned with Islam, which is what he was trying to argue. That somehow, there were so many logical problems because even if you can show Q is consistent with Islam, that doesn't mean. Again, it's like you can find a document from the 1st century saying don't eat bacon. That's consistent with Islam. That does not mean they were preaching Islam. IP research, Abyssinian roots of Islam, Quran is a Christian homily. Yeah, I've heard this before. Yeah, I think I've heard Jay Smith talk about that, but I think there's some issues there.
Yeah, I don't think it's that plausible.
100% of synoptics defeat Islam, then so would Q. Yeah. Hypothetically, if we reconstruct 95% of Q, how do we know the last 5% didn't contradict Islam? Exactly. That's the point I was making. God was correct when he said Ishmael would be a wild ass of a man. Jesus, like you need to have an IQ over 80 to be a Christian or something. Dean concedes in Q, Jesus calls himself Lord, then runs into Jesus never said he was God. Wonder how Muslim channels will clip this. 2026 is good. 2026 is starting out great. That was a great way to start the year, I have to say. That was perfect. It's going to be a good year. Is that what passes as intellectual in Islam? Verse 21, Jesus answers, why do you call me good? Jesus just went through all the condemnations, but he says he lacks one thing and told him to follow him. Right. Yeah. Jesus sets his words.
There's a key word in that passage that, kind of just gets glossed over, but it says Jesus looked at him and loved him. And then he gives the response. So Jesus asked that question to get him to say, I follow all the commandments. He doesn't call him on that, which we know is certainly not true, right? He certainly didn't perfectly follow the law to a T. But instead of calling him on his arrogance, he looks at him and asks a question that he knows he can't answer. And the man went away sad.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he also sets his own words up. He's like, the commands of Moses, he says, you lack one thing, you must follow me. So following Jesus is on par with the commands given to Moses. What does that tell you?
Yeah, I mean, that very passage claims that Jesus is God, right?
I know, yeah. That's actually something I think, like Kona has pointed out, but I have to go check his books again. Do Muslims not understand the implications of events happening outside of time? I don't know. Talking about Q is the big 26 Islam is cooked, apparently, yeah. That's not going to help them. I don't know why they're going to that. Logic is haram. Guys, cut him some slack. Mark chapter 2, he forgives the sins of the paralyzed man, claiming he's God by forgiving his sins. Yeah, that's another argument I've used. Jesus in John 10, it is not written ye are gods. He's referencing Psalm 82, claiming verse 8, he is the judge of the earth. Dean responds more like a dense response. The Islamic delusion needs to be made a thing. I mean, it doesn't matter how many times Dean comes here. He makes circular arguments. That's the second time he's come here to make a circular argument. The first time he was trying to get out of the Islamic dilemma. Now he's making a circular argument that Jesus never claimed to be God because, well, here are some verses Jesus claimed to be God. Well, no one thought that. Therefore, that's not what this guy thought. The apologists were given the authority to forgive sins, not the power to. The 5 Ds of Dawah, dip, duck, dive, dodge, and Dean responds. Dude is trying to see how many L's he can rack up for himself in one stream. It did not go well, unfortunately, for him. Jesus claims Son of Man from Daniel 7. Yep. That's it. Bring Chuck next time. Thaddeus and IP, the Muslims love hopscotch. Yeah, he jumped around like crazy. We were talking about Lord, and he immediately went to Mark, and I'm like, I see what you're doing here, but it's not going to work. So you let him go through the weeds a little bit, and then you make the point, and this doesn't help you. Here's why. He's just conflating the term of Son of Man, deliberately butchering Mark II and parroting what he sees on ChatGPT. The interpretation is laughably bad. It is like Mark II. Jesus is clearly claiming that he is the Lord of the Sabbath and that he's God. Man, I don't know. It's only the first day of 2026, and we have the first Dawa butchering. David Wood was not exaggerating about this year. Well done, both of you. Thank you. We appreciate that. I had a lot of fun. I knew exactly where it was going to go. I knew this. I saw the circularity coming, and he just walked right into it. Question 4: Jesus baptized with fire and the Holy Spirit. Q11: the Gentiles will inherit the earth. Q22: Jesus says, "My Father." Q33: when you pray, say Father. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, so it's all over there.
Yeah. Q75 definitely goes against Islam divorce laws. That's a good point too. Yeah, I didn't think of that. I would shut down the whole Allah is the Father argument by pitting Muslim scholar and Dean, the Quran using 931, thus shutting down the whole Q agrees with Islam argument. Yeah, I thought about going there, but he's got some weird nuanced stuff, and I just wanted to pin him on something instead of trying to let him reinterpret his way out of that, because he can't interpret him way out of the Lord argument. Ask him if he thinks Rebecca was actually 3. Let's see how honest he is based on the actual context of her being a woman and doing labor. Yeah. Mike, why are you showing so much respect to an actual scumbag? The guy's prophet wore woman's clothing to receive revelation. Islam is filth, man. I'm going to let him talk because I want to get him in the circles. And he got himself in the circles. You saw it. Everyone
just to be
saw
clear, those two things don't follow, right? He's not a scumbag because Muhammad possibly wore woman's clothing. I actually don't think that's the correct interpretation of that passage either. But the reason he's a scumbag is because of his behavior today, his behavior on many previous debates, and especially his behavior in the Muhammad hijab scandal.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. It's the way they've treated poor Aisha. It's insane. And he even said it here. He called her dumb. I was blown away by that. That's just off the wall. AP said it's a troll. He did not say it's an implausible reading. Yeah, this is the thing about him bringing it up. He's like, you want to do like a freaking like deposition briefing here on this. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, bro, this is ridiculous.
It is a troll. Like, I can say it's a troll argument, but that doesn't mean it's not true. It's not something found in Islamic texts. And by historical standards, the texts are more probable to record historical events than not, if anything in the Hadith does. Because why else would you write this down? Why else would you record this event if it wasn't based on something that actually happened?
Yeah, we'll be lectured by a Muslim on tolerance based. Tell him either eat the Bible right now or concede the Islamic dilemma. He won't eat it because it's Allah's words. Yeah. Islam deserves to be mocked into oblivion. Dean, you clown. Thad, IP, you're all conceding too much ground here. Dean shouldn't be making any demands. This is the problem with modern Christians.
So IP in his way, right? He gave him so much rope that he hung himself many, many times over, right? There are some things I wouldn't have let him get away with, like him constantly claiming it was the earliest source when that wasn't even true, or him claiming that subordination, at least, early things called subordination, taught that Jesus is not Yahweh. That's not true, right? There's things I wouldn't let him get away with, but he was hung, right? IP destroyed him for sure.
Listen, there are many things he got away with. I'll grant you that, Cole. But as Thaddeus said, we're just giving him rope to hang himself with. He's making circular arguments. That's what we wanted to show. You can't address literally everything somebody says. It's going to be impossible in a conversation. We should disrespect false religions. Rules for thee and not for me. Yep, that's what it happens all the time. Does Dean condemn Nayar 8 calling Jesus a pig? I don't know. It's a good question. Does he?
He might.
This is what I'm talking about. Concede ground to Muslims and you don't get it back. I don't know what yours is a reference to. Dean is a clown. AP didn't dodge the debate. Dean, no response, was laughing at Charlie Kirk's death. That was the reason for the response. You shouldn't entertain this clown. Yeah, I forgot Dean did that. He was definitely mocking Charlie Kirk's death, which is pretty messed up. I think he did delete them later, but I got screenshots before then.
Well, that changes things. Like I literally had no idea anything that happened. But if AP was like tentatively agreeing to the debate and then Dean was mocking Charlie Kirk's death, I think that AP would be fully justified in saying, never mind, I don't want to debate you. You're a scum.
That's fair. Yeah. See, that's the thing. I was not thinking about all this stuff. He came here for an intellectual argument, like he said, and then he's like, actually, I want to talk about all this drama. Why do you want to talk about this drama, Thaddeus? How dare you?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is going on? I was like, I actually just hate that kind of drama stuff. I only talk about it when I feel like I have to. That's why I forget all that kind of stuff. How is attacking hijab attacking Islam? Either hijab equal Islam or Islam is not true.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I agree that attacking hijab doesn't actually make Islam false, but that doesn't mean there's no purpose behind it. Right? That doesn't mean that we shouldn't stand up for truth and justice and Aisha's human rights. Dean could have distanced himself from hijab, right? He could have just said, yep, I condemn hijab, except he can't, right? Because all these guys have dirt on each other, and hijab is way bigger, way more important, way more powerful than Dean. And this is one thing I realized from all my time doing Islam, right? When I started doing this, I thought, everyone will care about intellectual arguments, which is not true of human beings in general, but it's especially not true in Islam. Islam is authority-based. So attacking authorities like hijab actually has a much bigger effect on, a large percentage, say 75% of Muslims, and only 25% care about the intellectual argument.
Mm-hmm. Pray for Dean responds that he would repent of his sins and turn away from Islam and submit to the Lord Jesus Christ. May the Lord God be faithful. Let us pray that for sure, and get out of that weird group chats where they're trying to, find dirt on someone. It's messed up, man. Matthew 7:16, behold the fruits of Islam. Thank you for that. Did you know we have an ossuary of the ossuary of Judas Thaddeus? He's talking about this supporter here. I haven't had time to look into it, but he believes that the ossuary of James actually says Lord Jesus on it. I need to look more into that though. Let's not forget Dean celebrating Charlie Kirk's death the day after he died. Yeah, I forgot about that because, again, stupid drama stuff, but that's pretty messed up. Yep. Like, bring a verse like, it's dawah, dismiss everything. Mm-hmm. Islam is more than a religion. It's political ideology based on strict dogmatic interpretation of 7th century Islamic doctrine versus Sharia law. Don't debate on their channel. They are dishonest people and just want to chase clout. Great work, by the way. Thank you so much for that. Christian Gadfly's got a great channel. He says, Mark 6 was a big part of me accepting high Christology, entering back into Christianity. It's the only gospel that records Jesus attempting to pass by them when he walks on water. Yeah, that's another great argument because it's going back to theophanies in Exodus, 1 Kings, and even Job, directly alluding to that. So yeah, there's a lot of good evidence. So thank you for the very generous super chat there. Hey, Mike, pulled the... Oh yeah, we addressed this earlier, man, when you sent this in. Yeah, check out on refuting Islam. Check out what Nabil Qureshi's book is, Seeking Allah, Finding Jesus. Why don't you start with that book? I thought more about it. Think of that. Get that book.
Yeah. I think that's actually excellent there because that has a much more personal touch, and it sounds like no insult intended, but it sounds like it's more of a personal thing than an argument thing. So yeah, I'd say Nabil's book.
Yeah, so Nabil Quresh, Seeking Allah, Finding Jesus. Check that book out. Proof he lost. I fell asleep for an hour mid-debate and missed nothing. Woke up to him still dodging everything you threw at him. Dude, man, we're going to have to start calling it the Dean dodge because, like there was so much. I was like, my mentality is like, I'll entertain these dodges because we're going to bring them back around. But eventually I was like, okay, no, we've been going for how long? We're not going to keep doing these dodges.
I would not be surprised if the clip where we eventually refuse to answer about the hour and say, see, they can't answer this.
I know for a fact they're going to clip that and be like, look, Christians refuse to answer about the hour. You see, that's going to be clipped. You guys watch it. Mark my word. That's what they're going to do. And then obviously they're going to be taking things out of context. In 26, can we, like Mo, put Al-Zut behind us? I'm not sure what that means. Sorry. According to Dean, Malik is apostate for attacking the Da'is. Oh, that's interesting. I wonder what Malik would say about that. Interesting. So, all right, we've been going for almost 4 hours, more than I wanted to. We're going to close this out. Sorry, we're not going to take any more callers. I'm done. Dean jumped in there, and I was like, all right, we've got a special guest now. We're going to honor that, as we said we would. And we're going to take the special guest in. So Sorry for anybody who else wanted to come in, but we're not going to be doing anything else. We're going to, as we said, we're not going to be like Sheikh Uthman, who runs and hides from debates. We're going to bring in a special guest, so just remember that.
Mm-hmm.
I have Thaddeus' channel linked below for anybody who wants to subscribe to him. Check out his work, and we will see you guys next time.
All right.
You made it to the end of this video, which means this message matters to you. If you want to see more content like this reaching people for Christ, you can help make it happen. Your support makes these videos possible. Click the link below and donate today. And if you want to go even deeper, consider joining our Patreon community. You'll get early access to videos, behind-the-scenes content, and a place to connect with others passionate about this mission.